Hello. Hey, I know I'm getting started a little bit later again. However, I was finishing up some things for the premiere of the number that I choreographed. So that's something to look forward to, hopefully. I also have the stripped version on Patreon that will be available. So I am having it cost something as like a cover charge because you should pay to see me dance in that manner. All right. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. My name's Aubri Devashrayee. All right. Shall we get into the programming? There is a Ziwe interview that came out with Rami Youssef that I want to watch. And there is also a video that I wanted to finish up from yesterday about Alcatraz and native resistance. And then get into some of the latest news because unfortunately we have some not great developments. Surprise, surprise, in this moment that we find ourselves in. Everything is falling apart. We have a Supreme Court that is incredibly fascist. They are corrupt to the core. That we have even seen that the more progressive justices have been siding with the conservatives. Of course, not Ketanji Brown Jackson. She has been on the right side of history, I think, for basically all of the cases that she has seen. We'll look a little bit at the hearing that Pete Hegseth had in front of Congress. There is an update with a DHS funding bill. And then we'll get into the chemistry of building community, like what happens biologically, neurobiologically. Tan, frequent chatter viewer and mod, has recommended an article, scholarly article, on the effects of on again, off again relationships that I think is very interesting. And it's specifically talking about romantic relationships, but I think it can apply to really any relationships. So we'll go through that. And then we'll read the Scarlet Pimpernel, that aristocratic propaganda. We also were able to finalize the decision for the next banned book, and it looks like the winner out of all of the choices that I provided will be, well, it is, the book that we are reading will be The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. So get your copy. We have about, a little less than a week. We do banned book club on Wednesdays. So if you are wanting to be ready for the first reading, you can get your book. I still haven't decided what the first reading will be, like what the section is. So I'll keep you updated on that. I'll probably announce that tomorrow. And tomorrow, as I mentioned, the choreography is coming out. This dance that I created, I provided a little bit of historical context for the style of dancing. So you can look forward to that. And if you so desire to see the stripped down version on Patreon, you can do that. For people who are already subscribed to the Patreon, it is cheaper. So it's just part of your subscription that you get to watch it. If you are not a subscriber, you can still watch it. You just have to pay $1 extra to watch it individually as a post. So, let's get into the Ziwe interview.
What's happening?
Basha wanted to come. I've seen the show, so yes. I tell people he's an emotional support dog, and I felt like this would actually be the perfect time to use him for his services.
And is he licensed as an emotional support dog, or are you one of those people that lies to get your dog on a plane?
I bought a certificate
lies
online.
to get
How
him
much
on
did
a plane?
It cost?
$36.
Okay, well, you could have been using that to support a charity.
Tonight,
hello,
I
Linton.
Comedian
Welcome.
What does
How has your day been?
NAACP stand for?
I don't think anybody knows.
As a man, are feelings new for you?
The hardest part of being a man is the
brain
burden.
damage.
There's a chance
the
that
brain
the Saudis
damage.
don't find me funny. We get an Arab money. I would argue the Middle East is already being handled comedically.
Is Basha helping you feel better?
Yeah.
This is not even 1/10 of the difficulty level. Did your dog just fart?
When the Quran plays, he howls. Carbohydrates are for weak people like Paul Rudd. What does NAACP stand for?
Ziwe
Carbohydrates are for weak people like Paul Rudd.
starts now.
My next iconic guest is an actor, writer, and comedian. Watch his special In Love on HBO. Please welcome Ramy Youssef.
Thank you.
And Basha.
Yeah.
Can you state for the record your name,
He's
race,
a
and
talented
pronouns?
comedian.
Ramy Youssef. I'm Egyptian. He, him. The pronouns, yeah.
What turned you straight?
Women. Yeah.
Yeah,
Any in particular, or?
that tracks.
Like a lot of them, I guess, or, since I saw them. Yeah.
And when was the first time you saw women?
Early. Yeah, definitely early. And then it just kind of was since then.
Dog is so cute.
Who was your childhood crush?
Lizzie McGuire.
Wow,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. But,
She was immediately dismissive. Why?
you saw it.
One of your
You saw
cousins is autistic, even though obviously he's not diagnosed. How do you, as a comedian, diagnose autism?
Yeah, you don't. I mean, it's definitely a doctor's job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the family goes, we're pretty
But
sure
as a comedian,
that
you
that's
have
what's
special
happening.
powers,
But also,
perhaps.
we're not gonna get the diagnosis. Like, I'm not diagnosed as ADHD, but I have all the symptoms.
What are the symptoms?
Just focus stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Focus stuff?
Yeah.
So you have ADHD.
100%.
Got it.
Yeah. But I wouldn't take the drug.
Why not?
I don't like drugs.
Oh,
Yeah.
no drugs whatsoever.
No
No
drugs.
Yeah, PSA.
Guys, just drugs is probably not worth it unless you really need it. There's some people who have ADHD that needs the drugs. I have it, but I don't think I have the need the drug level.
Well, you don't have a diagnosis, so you just...
Only take drugs if you need them.
But you don't know because you haven't done the tests.
That is also such like a Mina thing. Like, it's very similar with like Desi culture of like Middle Eastern people, North African people being like, yeah, you don't need meds. Like that's a pretty common sentiment, especially if your parents are immigrants. Take drugs. Yeah, in many ways. I'll leave it at that.
Coming up, you won a Golden Globe Award in 2020. Do you agree that you're objectively superior to Michael Douglas, Bill Hader, Ben Platt, and Paul Rudd?
I would say definitely superior to Paul Rudd.
Why is that?
Of the group. I've hung out with him, and
Flex.
yeah, I would say
What?
he was the bad hang. I was just like, you have a breakfast with someone and you walk away and you go, yeah, I deserved the Golden Globe.
How could you tell?
There's just like a bunch of metrics, yeah, that kind of made themselves apparent. I think he felt the same
A
too.
bad
if you asked
hang.
him.
That you are superior.
California
Definitely at that
sober.
breakfast.
What were you eating at the breakfast?
Just diner
Exactly.
food. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you got the pancakes, you got
Exactly.
the waffles.
He was going heavy on the carbs. I was eggs.
Carbohydrates are for the weak. Could you say that to camera?
Carbohydrates are for weak people like Paul Rudd.
You were also nominated for an NAACP Image Award.
I'm sure
in
he said
2021.
Paul Rudd because
what
they're
does
friends.
NAACP stand for?
National
It's. I don't think anybody knows.
If you had to
Association
guess.
of the Advancement.
Do I have to?
Yeah. You were nominated for one in 2021.
It was COVID. Yeah, so that's
So
why
what
it's
does
kinda
that
hard.
mean?
It's an organization that's been around since the Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you
National
NAACP
African American Coalition Project.
Yeah, okay, I was right.
National African American Coalition Project. Image
National
Award.
Association for the Advancement of Colored People. That's what I thought, but then I backed out at the last second.
You named your first special Feelings and your second special More Feelings.
Yeah.
Your latest special is called In Love. As a man, are feelings new for you?
Embracing them definitely was new. Yeah. What does NAACP stand for, please?
Are you ready to learn?
Yeah.
The National Advancement of African American Colored People.
Okay. It feels like there should be a third
Nice.
National Advancement, or is it National African American? No, it's Advancement. National Advancement of
National Association.
National Association of the Advancement of National Association. Okay, National.
So you don't know either.
Better words than
I
you.
don't.
National African American Coalition Project.
Yeah.
National Association.
He only got one word.
of Colored People. Yeah, because it wouldn't be
Right.
African American.
And just, a white guy did tell us that. Thank
That's
you.
true.
And it just feels like between the two of
White
us,
guy did tell us that.
I would have expected more from you.
Well, why would you say that?
Advancement.
To bring you a formal apology. Ziwe is embarrassed by her mistake. Clearly, Rami is not. Ziwe would like to make amends by sharing some NAACP facts. Yep, there we go. The music. It is the United States' largest and most widely recognized civil rights organization. It was founded on February 12, 1909, with the mission to end segregation, end racial violence, and ensure civil liberties for all. Wow.
Should I continue?
Making amends.
As a man, are feelings new for you?
Bravo.
Yeah. Yeah, understanding them all, definitely.
Do you want to turn to camera and define what feelings are for fellow brethren?
Yeah. Hey guys, feelings is when you just, that hot feeling, you kind of feel a heat in your body, and there's like a thing tingling in your ear, sometimes feet, and then you feel things and you go, wow, and sometimes water by the eyes. But the more you kind of
Water by the eyes, not from the
feel
eyes.
calm despite.
Also the
That was the end of the
close-up
sentence?
of his dog.
Yeah.
Okay. And what feelings do you feel right now?
Unease.
What's the hardest part about being a man?
Capitalism. The expectation of capitalism.
Advancement?
Protection. Yeah. Placement. What's the P again?
People.
Yeah.
Wait, what does NAACP stand for after we've been told this explicitly by a white man named Daniel?
I can't remember.
Daniel.
It's just all, everything's happening so fast. The hardest part of being a man is the
brain
burden,
damage.
the burden of capitalism,
Yes.
and the general brain damage. Yeah,
Coming up, do you consider yourself a male
Patriarchy
feminist?
does that, I guess.
for sure.
Why should women trust you?
That's not what I'm asking them to do. They don't have to.
So they
If
shouldn't
you get to
trust
know me,
you?
you can trust me, but in mass, you really don't have to. Yeah, that's
That
not.
is such a wild
you know.
response.
If you choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the special that you feel pressure to have children, so you have something to talk about with your parents. How else are children a bandage for a relationship?
No, it's not about the talk. It's for the them to help me raise them. Yeah. You know, parents want to be grandparents. Yeah.
That is true.
So it kind of activates the family
That
tree.
is not
That's
a
my
good
hope.
enough
Yeah.
reason.
Does
to
your
have
wife enjoy this so-called humor?
50-50.
Does she get veto power over your bits?
Yeah.
Who is his wife? I don't know who
Yeah,
his
she
wife
comes
is.
out
I'll look this up.
probably before I'm going to tape, a month before, sees the material.
Really?
Yes.
And does the threat of publicly humiliating her in your set keep her behavior in line at home?
No, it's kind of the other way around. My public behavior is constantly under monitor.
He was born
and
in
watch.
Queens. I knew he was from New
Rightfully
York.
so.
What does that mean?
It means I can't be out here running around embarrassing her.
Got
you
it.
know? Yeah, that's the goal.
So you tell a bad joke and she sees that, and then what happens at home?
Physical.
Advancement.
Coming up,
He's been married to a visual artist from Saudi Arabia since 2022. He met his wife through May Kalamawi, his co-star in Rami. Oh, he has a TV show? I didn't know that. Wow, I'm behind the times. He is private about his personal life and has not chosen to disclose his wife's personal details publicly. I mean, good for
Real
him.
white guilt. What's the whitest thing about you?
I live in Brooklyn.
That's the whitest thing about you?
No, the whitest thing about me is that I live in Brooklyn, but I take Basha to a groomer in the West Village. Because I like
That is
the
very
cut
white.
better.
I like the
Wow.
cut.
So I pay the congestion toll.
You Uber her to the
Also, fun fact, he was the first person on Saturday Night Live to actually mention Palestinians and said Free Palestine when he was hosting. So,
West Village.
using his platform.
Him to the West
It's
Village. I'm
cool.
so sorry.
Yeah.
What are Basha's pronouns?
It took SNL long enough to have someone
Pronouns.
who
You share
would
your
say
pronouns?
that.
We're the same pronouns, yeah.
And are you the same race?
I don't know. I mean, he dies, you know, as in white or, I mean, white guilt? No, we're definitely not the same race. No, that's.
You mentioned that your dog commits assault a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is the dog that is humping women without consent.
The bit is, you know, at the dog
See?
park.
I have something to say about this. I have cats, clearly. They are in and out of this stream quite a bit. I love dogs. I worship cats. That's the difference. But also, I'm not interested in going to second base with your dog. I don't want to be humped. I don't want their tongue down my throat. And if you say this to dog people, they get so offended. They're like, but they're giving you kisses. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like, can they like stop after a point? I don't know. That probably makes me sound callous, but I don't want to non-consensually be intimate with your pet. And the non-consensual party is me. You know what I mean?
He often is just rolling around. I don't see him asking. He's just having sex however he'd like. And so I'm trying to kind of train that out of him.
How do you
Yeah,
train
that's
that out of
good.
him?
Long talks and trying to get him like a steady relationship going. There's a dog around the corner.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So just trying to foster that kind of thing.
And he's fixed.
He's on the right path. I mean, he had a little, like, he's with me now because he had a little slip up, and so kind of
Slip up?
He's under intense.
No, I meant his genitals.
His genitals are fixed. Yes. Yeah. His genitals are fixed.
Got it. In your special, you say that any man who should be married is married, and any man who is single should be single. I'm going to list unmarried peers,
That
and
logic.
you tell me why they should be single. Are you ready?
Okay.
Can you give me a jingle for this game?
A jingle?
Yeah, make.
Like hum it out? Like.
Yeah, like just a jingle. We're going to transition it. You know.
Oh yeah.
Hollywood.
Yeah. This is why you're single.
Thank you.
Okay.
He's
Ugh.
promiscuous.
Leonardo DiCaprio,
Promiscuous.
Elon
Creepy.
Musk,
I guess promiscuous, but he's having a lot of children.
Bad Bunny.
Yeah, promiscuous. Yeah, this is yeah. It's what's happening.
Please?
These guys are promiscuous.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
And so you just like to slut shame men. What is that about?
yeah. They got to get it under control.
The men
Yes.
need to stop having sex.
They just need to focus
On.
the right
on not minors.
Okay,
How about that?
Is this one of the tenets of ADHD? Are they all undiagnosed as well?
I would bet all of these men have ADHD listed
That's your professional opinion
Among
as a
many
doctor.
things, probably.
as a comedian.
Trevor Noah.
Trevor, yeah, he's out there. He has ADHD. He talks about that.
Oh, he does.
He's like,
Yeah,
see?
diagnosed.
What's the quote? Do you remember?
His quote?
Yeah.
About ADHD?
Yeah.
He said, "I have it."
Oh. And where was
Wow.
that quote? Is it in his book?
Yeah.
Oh. You've done a lot of research on this disability.
Yeah.
Coming up.
You gained weight after your wedding trip to Egypt. You said that now that you have a fat ass, you are the man and the woman of the house.
Yeah.
Are women just a nice smile and a fat ass to you?
Not just.
But they're there.
It's part of the thing, though.
The thing.
But there's a lot more.
Like what?
Intelligence, heart,
Art.
and a lot of other things.
You differentiate between us Muslims.
I've heard that the pauses that Ziwe has are intense. Like they're like 2 minutes long. What that question reminded me of this. See if I can find it. This is from the Swan Princess.
Arrange the marriage. What? You're all I ever wanted. You're beautiful.
Thank you. But what else?
What else?
Is beauty all that matters to you? Derek?
Her dad is like, how dare you ask? As if there's something more to women.
What else?
What else is there?
Why did they add that guy at the end? Oh, that is scary. Damn, I wish they had the comments up. That's what that reminds me of. What else is there? Anyway.
Muslims and the Muslims. What does the Muslims mean?
You know, the... I mean, we're all...
Is
we're
Basha
all,
okay?
Basha, yeah, the Muslim question triggered him a little bit. He's Muslim, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, when the Quran plays, he howls.
And does he pray
That's
5 times a
cute.
day as well?
No, I tried to get him to do Ramadan, but he wanted to eat.
Yeah.
And what's his stance on burqas?
If you want.
Thanks, Basha.
Yeah, it's a if you want policy
Oh, I see.
in our household.
I see. Basha's not as stringent as maybe other.
As others, sure. Yeah, no, never.
As
never.
the Muslim. That's what
was
he's
the question?
implying.
What does the Muslims mean?
Oh, we're all, I think we're all one big.
No,
one big
these are your
community, but
words.
yeah.
Don't gaslight me, you psycho.
Well, it's okay, buddy. I know these questions are hard. I know. The Muslims are they're part of my family, but they're the ones who are overseas. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, they're different.
Yeah,
but the same, but different.
got it.
Yeah.
Whatever
so you're
that means.
Egyptian and Muslim. What racial slurs are you allowed to say?
None of them really.
None?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm not.
The dog.
Did your dog just fart?
I think he farted. Yeah, he did.
So you're not allowed to say the N-word.
No, that's.
What do you put on the census?
Other.
Other.
Yeah,
I think they count that as white.
I think they do too.
Damn.
Well,
Yeah.
you know why Arabs don't
This is
have
how
a-
we also know, like, race is a social construct, where it's like growing up with a lot of these categories, filling out race and ethnicity, of being like, oh, they have Asian as a catch-all group. Bitch, that is the most populated continent. Okay.
a box on the
No,
census.
why?
Because the first Arabs here were Syrian.
Boring Barsha.
The first Arabs were Syrian, and they wanted to own land, so they said they were white. They said they were just sun-tanned white people from working in the farm all day because they wanted to own land.
And they finessed the system.
They finessed the system, which is, you know, a beautiful thing to see, but now we're underrepresented.
Damn. Or you're here, but you're not
We're not
accounted
counted.
for.
Yeah, no one knows where we are. Well, they do, because they're watching us. Yeah.
Well,
When you hosted SNL, you ended your monologue
Surveillance
saying,
state.
"Free Palestine and release the hostages." As a stand-up comedian, how would you bring peace to the Middle East?
I would probably defund Palantir.
ooh, that's a good one.
And
Arrest
Yeah.
Satan Yahoo.
Comedically.
I would argue the Middle East is already being handled comedically.
Coming up.
Rank the following holidays
Integrated.
in terms of importance.
One state
Ramadan,
solution.
Passover, Easter.
I think that was the order. Yeah, I think that was the order.
Okay, clock that, team. When they bring back the draft, how do you plan on dodging?
I have a color deficiency.
What does
Yeah,
that mean?
like I don't see like some of the colors I don't see that well.
Yeah.
What?
So I
Some
couldn't
color
look at
blindness?
like a radar. I see you.
What do you see?
I think my jacket's purple.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about my skin color?
What do you mean? What is your skin color?
Please.
Black. Right? I can't get that wrong.
And
Can
what
I?
does NAACP stand for again?
I don't know. Do you remember?
Yes. National Association of the Advancement of Colored People.
There you
right?
go.
For the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Mm-hmm. And I know that now.
Finally, got it right.
What's your favorite Dr. Martin Luther King quote?
I really like the dream.
Oh, how does that one go?
The dream.
He says, you know, I have a dream that all the kids are playing together.
Oh.
Yeah,
How many black friends do you have?
a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
And could you name some?
Yeah, I could.
Please.
But that would feel kind of limiting, no?
No.
Really? Okay. My friend Amir. Black. Yeah. My friend Michael.
Emoji.
Black.
Okay.
Yeah. My friend Sam. Black.
Black.
Yeah.
Listing off his
It's
friends.
just something about this feels strange.
Yeah,
just
it's
listing.
the fact that you keep saying black at the end of your
Yeah. I've seen her break a lot in
How do you
this.
think this went?
Normally
Really
she doesn't
well.
break
Oh,
this
yeah?
much.
Yeah, I feel good.
What were your favorite parts?
I like the NAACP part.
Yeah. And what does that stand for?
National. Oh my God, I just had it.
Association
National
for the
Advancement.
Advancement of Colored People.
National Advanced.
And you don't do drugs. No weed.
This is why. I
Your
don't.
memory is really terrible.
Yeah,
It's
he
my
doesn't
focus
even
is
have
the
that
problem.
excuse.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
He's not even
Yeah,
California sober.
N
National
A
African
A
American
C
Coalition
P.
Project.
The National
Yeah.
Advancement
Uh-huh.
of African American Colored People.
What's the P again?
National Association of the Advancement of Colored People.
Color people. And I know that now. I
No,
will
you
know
don't, sir.
That I know.
Rami Youssef, everyone. Can I hold your puppy?
Yeah, of course.
Does he like to be held?
Yeah. He loves it.
And this is like when Eric Adams held my dog. Look at this cute puppy.
Eric Adams held her
Is
dog.
your dog racist?
No.
Okay. So, moving along, we're going to talk about Alcatraz and indigenous resistance. I'm going to refresh this just in
Before
case.
Europeans first
Cover our
appeared in
bases.
North America in the 16th century, the vast plains from northern Texas to Saskatchewan
This is
were
very
home to
quiet.
30 different tribes. Each tribe spoke a distinct language, practiced its own religion, and formed its own government. Then, in the 16th century, the mounted Spanish conquistadors ventured into the New World. Their horses revolutionized Indian societies into efficient hunting machines. The European invasion soon eclipsed the short-lived era of the horse and led up to the Native Americans taking a stand at the occupation of Alcatraz, coining the phrase, "We hold the rock."
This is a fun fact. So in Mormonism, horses are mentioned in the Book of Mormon, and they are mentioned at a time when they were not in the Americas. So there is like a running joke with ex-Mormons that they would be riding this animal called a tapir, which would have been around at the time. So there you go.
November 8th, 1811. In the Battle of Tippecanoe, General William Henry Harrison led a force of 1,000 men against a coalition of northwestern tribes, forged by Tecumseh and his brother the Prophet, who resisted the expansion of white Americans into Indian lands. May 28, 1830, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, authorizing the president to pursue ownership of all Indian lands east of the Mississippi River. February 9, 1887, Congress enacted the Dawes-Severalty Act to divide Indian lands into individual holdings, with the remaining sold to whites. November 29, 1890, at the Wounded Knee Creek, a battalion of the 7th Cavalry opened fire on the Sioux camp, killing 300 Indians. The Wounded Knee Massacre marked an end to the era of Indian wars. By the 20th century, Native Americans found themselves crammed together on tiny reservations.
Wounded Knee is where the bull that is sitting, that chief, Lakota chief that we were talking about earlier this week, was at.
Clinging with tired but determined fingers to their traditions. Red Power was the term given to post-1960 Native American protests that aimed to reclaim the American Indian identity and address issues of injustice, deprivation, or suppression. Between 1969 and 1971, the Indians of all tribes took a stand in the occupation of Alcatraz to awaken the American public to the disenfranchisement of the Native Americans and to assert the need for Indian self-determination. The first attempt to take Alcatraz in San Francisco occurred not long after the federal prison on the island closed in 1963. On March 8, 1964, a group of Sioux claimed that the Fort Laramie Treaty guaranteed them any surplus federal land.
Alcatraz Island is the original property of California Indian people collectively in California. And now especially that the federal buildings there are abandoned, that is, are no longer being used for special purposes, the buildings and all of the other property on Alcatraz revert to the original owners of the real estate, which would be, in this particular case, the California Indian people.
They occupied the island for several hours before U.S. Marshals escorted them off. 5 years later, Native American discontent continued to grow in urban areas, where more than 50% of American Indians lived as a result of federal Indian urban relocation programs. Some 30 Bay Area social clubs were formed to meet the needs of the urban Indians who wanted the opportunity to higher education. These people represented a population that was poised on the brink of activism. Disillusioned Indian youth from reservations, urban centers, and universities called for Red Power in their crusade to reform the conditions of their people. In the 1960s, catalyzed by the civil rights movement, Native American activism increased as younger American Indians attempted to awaken white America to their injustices. When the San Francisco Indian Center burned down in October 1969, Native American activists proposed turning Alcatraz into a new Indian center. Meanwhile, student activists, including Mohawk Richard Oakes, remembered the Sioux's efforts and determined to occupy the island once again. In 1969, the American Indians took a radical turn when they occupied the prison on Alcatraz Island. Through taking a stand, they hoped to draw public attention to the disenfranchisement of Native Americans by claiming the island by right of discovery. On November 9th, nearly 100 Indians arrived at the pier where Richard Oakes delivered the Alcatraz Proclamation.
We will purchase said Alcatraz Island for $24 in glass beads and red cloth, a precedent set by the white man's purchase of a similar island about 300 years ago.
They also promised to open a Bureau of Caucasian Affairs to aid whites in becoming civilized.
The occupation is a good example of, at least initially, using humor rather than, trying to beat someone over the head to affect the change in people's attitudes. And I think it was very successful in that regard.
14 activists made it to the island and spent the night, but the Coast Guard removed them the following day. A week later, on November 20th, another group of 89 Native Americans from the Indians of all tribes landed on the island. Immediately, the occupiers formed an elected council to govern the island, and everyone took on various responsibilities: cooking, laundry, childcare, and security. Over the next several months, thousands of Indians would join the Indians of all tribes in an effort to build a Native American solidarity and make their voices heard. Oaks, the occupiers' main spokesperson, formulated the event slogan, "We hold the rock." Another spokesperson, Santee Sioux John Chadell, broadcasted the Indians of all tribes' concerns on Radio Free Alcatraz, a pirate station.
Every policy of the U.S. government, without exception, has been to terminate Native people, right? I mean, from the beginning. It was like either they tried to kill us all, they couldn't do it, then they put us on these reservations where nobody wants to live, places very isolated, desolate, difficult places to live. When that didn't work, then they said, okay, well, let's dissolve the reservations and try to find another way to deal with them. So it just became so ridiculous that it required a vocal response like this. And that's what Alcatraz did. Alcatraz became sort of the flag in the ground. Like, we've had enough. This is who we are here. You need to deal with us. You need to hear what our concerns are. You need to know the truth.
Yeah, still here.
Politicians, movie stars, rock bands, and everyday people responded overwhelmingly by sending supplies and money to the island. Tempered by power struggles within the group and the government's refusal to grant any of the Indians' requests, many of the activists had left by June 1st, 1971, when a fire destroyed the warden's home, the lighthouse, and the infirmary. Government officials resolved to clear the island of its 14 remaining occupants and reclaim the island by force. Despite the failure to achieve their immediate objectives, the Alcatraz occupiers created a watershed moment in Native American protests that resulted in an escalation of Indian activism around the country. The occupation provided a forum for airing long-standing Indian grievances and for the expression of Indian pride.
When the island first opened to the public, all we talked about was the prison, because that's all people wanted to hear about. But the more research we did, the more interviews we did with occupiers from Alcatraz, the more we realized how important that event was in the history, to the point where today, when we're restoring a water tower or a building, if there was messaging on there from the occupation, that is restored as well, often using occupiers and family members of occupiers to repaint those messages that are on the island. That's something that 20 years ago the Park Service never would have considered doing.
The 18-month occupation not only resulted in broad public exposure of the issues and substantial support for Indian rights, but also potentially forced significant concessions from the federal government. Moreover, Congress passed the Indian Financing Act of 1974, the Indian Self-Determination and Education Act of 1975,
namaste.
and the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act of 1976.
Good to see you.
The fact that Al Capone was on Alcatraz didn't change history. He could have been at any federal prison for those years, and the world would pretty much be the same world we live in today. The occupation changed things for people, for American Indians, for people like me. I was just a little kid growing up in Ohio, and it really made me realize there was a whole part of history we hadn't been taught in school in terms of Western expansion, in terms of the genocide, and I use that word very carefully, that occurred against the tribes in this country by Europeans, Spanish in this part of the country, British, the French, that there was this whole part of American history predating the false claim that Christopher Columbus discovered America, that we hadn't been taught. So it had a very significant impact on many people and policies in this country.
Taking a stand in the occupation of Alcatraz facilitated a springboard for the Red Power movement and gave many Native Americans the sense that anything was possible.
What literally occurred is one thing, but I think metaphorically what occurred is that Native people came to recognize that they had a voice, and that if they banded together, they had an even better voice. And I think it set models up for the future for other protests, and most especially for Standing Rock.
Thus, Red Power had come full circle, from the traditional Alcatraz days through a cycle of confrontations to the traditional quest for spiritual unity.
A little annoyed tuning in from my doctor's office. A work-related injury? Oh my god. I'm so sorry. Are they gonna pay for it? Hopefully. Do you have documentation? So you can get workers' comp? I hope you can get the care that you need there, and that they'll compensate you. Hello, Coz. Welcome, welcome. I'm doing all right. Yes, all that and more. Yeah, they need to do that. That's good to hear. And that they follow through, too. If you need me to yell at someone, not like that will do any good. But we watched an interview with Ziwe and Rami Youssef. We just watched a video that we didn't get to yesterday of the occupation of Alcatraz, a way for indigenous tribes to resist the co-opting of Alcatraz. And now we're getting into some of the latest news because we have a lot of bullshit happening. And I am also wanting to go over the article that you shared about relationships, on and off again relationships, how that has an impact biologically on people, and then tie that into larger relationships and community building. Thank you for sharing the article. Okay. So the Voting Rights Act was gutted by the Supreme Court. This is not good. It is intentionally disenfranchising people. It will disproportionately negatively affect Black people, Native people. And we see how this very fascist Supreme Court is acting in the way that they have been bought to act. They've been paid to act in this way because there is such rampant corruption there. That Peter Thiel and the Heritage Foundation was working for years and years to get justices that were compliant, that were willing to pursue their agendas. So this is not good. And I did want to hear from Maya Wiley on this to get more specifics for the impact. I'm going to be honest, Nermeen Sheikh, I have a crush on. I'm like, do you want to step on me and say mean things to me? Pre-negotiated mean things.
Of a key part of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. On Wednesday, in a 6-3 decision, the court struck down Louisiana's voting map that was designed to create a second majority Black district in the state, where African Americans have long faced racial segregation and barriers to voting. The 6 conservative justices on the court ruled Louisiana's map, quote, relied too heavily on race and unfairly favored Black voters over white voters. In her dissent, Justice Elena Kagan described the ruling as the, quote, latest chapter in the majority's now completed demolition of the Voting Rights Act. Kagan warned that the ruling will give states the power to draw congressional maps to disenfranchise voters of color. She wrote, quote, minority voters can now be cracked out of the electoral process.
Republican politicians rapidly seized on Wednesday's ruling. The Washington Post reports Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry told Republican House candidates he plans to suspend the May 16th primary elections so state lawmakers can pass a new congressional map first. Meanwhile, in a special session on Wednesday, Florida lawmakers approved a new congressional map designed to give Republicans 4 additional U.S. House seats in the midterm elections in November. On Wednesday, members of the Congressional Black Caucus gathered to condemn the Supreme Court ruling. This is Alabama Congressmember Terry Sewell.
Today, the far-right Supreme Court has dealt a devastating blow to our democracy and to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It will pave the way for the greatest reduction in representation for Black and minority voters since the years following Reconstruction.
Everything shakes. I mean, wouldn't that be nice?
Makes it easier for bad state actors to silence the voices of Black voters and harder to challenge the discrimination in
Yeah,
court.
I hope you
With this decision, the extremists
get the
on
care
the
that you
Supreme
need and
Court
can be
have
compensated.
completed their decades-long crusade to gut the Voting Rights Act of 1965. They willingly dismiss generations of legal precedent.
Yep. It really is wild how hard won these moments of progress are, that it takes so much organizing, so much time and heartache and suffering, and how with the stroke of a pen it can just be done away with.
Of congressional intent and the will of the American people. In doing so, they have given a green light to Donald Trump's partisan voter suppression scheme. Instead of responding to the will of the people and changing course, Trump and Republicans are trying to erode our democracy and suppress the vote to escape accountability at the ballot box. They're looking to steal the election. And we in the Congressional Black Caucus say no. No. We say hell no. Hell no. Not without a fight. I am a daughter of Selma, Alabama, and I grew up in the shadow of the civil rights movement. The foot soldiers who marched across that bridge were my neighbors, my church members, my parishioners, and my babysitters. I am here to tell you that the progress secured by those foot soldiers is being erased before our very eyes. And we say no. No. We say hell no. Not on our watch.
That was Democratic Congressmember Terry Sewell of Alabama. We're joined now by Maya Wiley, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, longtime civil rights attorney. Maya, thanks so much for being with us. If you can address our global audience and talk about the significance of the Voting Rights Act and what happened with yesterday's ruling.
Well, first of all, Amy, thank you for having me and thank you for this conversation. This is central to whether or not we maintain a multiracial democracy in this country and a real way for Black people, for Latinos, for Native Americans and Asian Americans to have a real opportunity to say who leads us. It is that simple, but if you put it in context, let's put it in context. You know, not only you heard from Representative Terry Sewell, who is an amazing leader on voting rights, and from the place where Black people marched along with white allies and faced not just attack, even threats of death, hospitalization, simply for peacefully marching for the right to vote. I say that because what they won by putting their bodies on the line was the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, the nation's largest and most diverse civil rights coalition, helped win. But what winning the Voting Rights Act did was take us from a place where there was virtually no representation in Congress or in state houses, because even in states like Alabama, like Louisiana, like so many other states where we had large percentages of Black people, also later Latinos as that population has grown, and Asian Americans, or in states with Native American populations that are large, did not have people who had to be accountable, because you could simply gerrymander, draw a map that was not fair in terms of interests of community, of the types of things communities would demand, that enabled people to get together and say, who's going to be our candidate? Who's going to solve our problems? Who's going to show up and speak to our needs? And we changed that because essentially Congress did something.
Yeah, these fascist cowards can't rely on public support because they don't have it, because what they are doing is deeply unpopular and harmful. We are having rising prices with basically every aspect of life for everyday people. And they know that people are upset, that they can't resort to any sort of democratic means. Did we actually have a democracy to begin with? That's another thing. But it is continuing to disenfranchise people. It is really devastating.
Extremely important. It said, you know what? Yes, intentional discrimination we know is unconstitutional. But what we have is a country that has segregated people by race. What we have as a country is such a long history of hiding the ability to steal power from Black people or from Latinos in all kinds of ways that don't even have to name it. We're going to look at the impact. If the impact on a voting decision, on a way of organizing the process of voting, means that the effect is that a large number of Black people or Latinos or anybody based on race will not have a fair opportunity to decide who leads us, that violates the Voting Rights Act. And the reason that was so critical is, you know, even if it was bean counting or naming the number of judges that existed in state courts or all the ridiculous things that were thrown as intentional hurdles to Black people voting in the South, for example, didn't say race. didn't name it. And so what Justice Alito and this really radicalized right-wing majority did was say, because we think that we shouldn't be able to say anything about partisan politics, we're not just going to create a loophole. We're going to create the sunken place where essentially any politicians who are controlling the politics of the state can just say, we're not discriminating. We just want to win. And we will win if Black people can't have a district where they have the ability to say who leads them. Because rather than competing for our votes, rather than trying to find the kinds of coalitions of the willing to create and create solutions to problems we all share, they'd rather just figure out a way to stay in power. That means state house races, that means school board races, but it also means who leads us in this country and whether or not we have a congressional Black caucus who makes arguments for civil rights, but also for things like access to healthcare, or a Latino caucus where we have enough political power to say you can't ignore how we are being treated. And the Supreme Court said we will turn not only a blind eye, we will have our eyes wide open and say, you can't prove it.
Yeah.
So, Maya, the principal provision in the Voting Rights Act is Section 2, which this ruling has effectively eviscerated. If you could explain what Section 2 calls for.
Yeah, and that's what I was just summarizing was basically what Section 2 says. So first of all, let me just say this, because especially not just for a global audience, but for a national audience, the context in which Representative Sewell said this is a decades-long fight to take away our rights and our ability to have leaders who look like us and who represent us. And that is that this Supreme Court said, first of all, took away Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. This is a section that said, you know, there has been so many shenanigans in blocking people of color, Black, Latino, Native American, Asian, from being able to vote, that we need a provision that says you have to get pre-clearance. If you have a long history of racial discrimination in this area, you have to have the Department of Justice say it's okay how you draw your electoral map or how you design other systems around voting, like early voting systems or where you have polling sites. And when the Supreme Court in 2013 said, you know what?
Project for ethnic cleansing.
We're going to say you haven't, history has changed. We're doing such a great job in the United States. You don't have to do that anymore. That opened the floodgates, for now what created a huge gap in voter turnout because we just had barrier after barrier after barrier thrown in our way, including on how maps were drawn. That means we have states that aren't representing the real population of those states. But Section 2 remained. Section 2 said, okay, but you can still sue. You can still bring a lawsuit if a state does anything that has the effect of making it harder for you to have a real opportunity as a Black community, as a Latino community, as a Native American community, to say who leads us, to participate in the process of voting. If it impacts you and it is clear that it impacts you, then we're going to say it's not okay. We're going to say it's discriminatory. What this Supreme Court said is really hard to prove intent. In fact, it's so hard to prove intent that we're going to say, even though Congress said you don't have to show that someone hates you, you don't have to show that any politicians are saying we just don't want Black people voting, we're going to say it's fine to prevent large numbers of Black people from being represented or make it harder for large numbers of Latino people to get access to a poll or Native Americans. We're going to say that's okay unless you can show us a rabid racist, even though Congress said, no, it's just about the effect. Yeah. It's just about the outcome.
It's intentionally limiting
when they did this yesterday,
recourse.
What they were saying and what Justice Kagan in her dissent said is, y'all just giving them a free pass to discriminate. And all they have to do it is say, it's just good for Republicans. And I'm saying that because that's who's running around right now saying, let's change all our maps. Democrats are now going to do it too, had started doing it. But it's just creating a new kind of civil war about who wants to have our votes. And if you're already in control in a state house, all you have to do to discriminate is say, yeah, it's just good for our party.
Well, and the New York Times reported, and this is in terms of the midterms coming up later this year, that hours after the ruling, Florida's legislature approved a new map that could give Republicans as many as 4 new seats in the state's congressional delegation, and other states are expected to follow. If you could talk about the implications of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is why this opinion is a devastating blow.
Yeah,
because it has literally, states have been organizing around this for a while. And as we know, Donald Trump asked for states like Texas, other states to rig their maps to guarantee
Utah.
an outcome for Republicans so they could hold on to that, to the U.S. Congress, to the House. And it was blatant, right? But what that means is you go for people of color. You go to draw maps that we call either packing or cracking communities of color. We've got racial segregation. We've got communities that are majority people of some kind of color. They're not without some diversity, but where there really is a large segment of people who live near each other, have shared interests.
Yeah,
and so
because of
Republicans
redlining,
started
oppression,
preparing those maps. In some instances, we're
marginalization.
already passing them. That's why we had this lawsuit in the first place. And then, but as we have seen, they were just waiting for permission to say, it's politics, it's partisan. And so Florida's had a long stretch of this. By the way, let's remember, for many in your audience may not remember this, after Barack Obama won election in 2008, and as we were approaching the 2012 elections, we saw all of a sudden claims that there was voter fraud, that undocumented immigrants were voting, that we had to make it much more difficult to prove you had the ability to vote lawfully. And what that did was disenfranchise a lot of people of color. But we had Republican Party head in Florida, Republican Party head in Pennsylvania saying that quiet part out loud is we can deliver an election this way. And so it's not surprising to now see Florida or Louisiana or Alabama or Missouri, any of these states saying, game on, now we're going to use this to make sure that
She must
large
have
segments of
family
our
in
population
Missouri
who are
for
people of
saying
color
Missouri.
don't count.
Maya Wiley, I want to ask you about another attack on civil rights. Last week, the Justice Department indicted the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, on an 11-count federal fraud case. The case centers on the center's history of paying people to infiltrate white supremacist groups, including the Ku Klux Klan, the Aryan Nation, and the National Alliance. The Southern Poverty...
I wonder why they're trying to stop that. Maybe it's because historically there have been maybe Klan members in government, especially when it comes to law enforcement. So, like, the fact that they're trying to say, like, oh, you're funneling money there. You don't care about that. Your ranks are replete with Klansmen.
Law Center rejected the charges as politically motivated, saying its informant program was used to monitor threats of violence and that the information gathered was routinely shared with local and federal law enforcement. On Sunday, President Trump spoke to 60 Minutes.
Did not mean to do that.
Southern Poverty Law Center.
I see these no kings, which are funded just like the Southern Law was funded. You saw all that. Southern Law is financing the KKK and lots of other radical, terrible groups. And then they go out and they say, oh, we've got to stop the KKK. And yet
By the way,
100...
Fred Trump, I've said this before, but we need to keep talking about it. Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father, was arrested at a Klan rally, a KKK rally in New York City. So he does not think that they're bad people, obviously, when he said that the people in Charlotte were there were good people on both sides when there were Klan members there.
Of thousands and even millions of dollars. It's a total scam run by the Democrats. It shows you that, like Charlottesville was all funded by the Southern Law. That was a Southern Law deal too.
I
and
said
it was
Charlotte.
done to make me look bad, and it turned out to be a total fake. It basically was a rigged election. This was a part of the rigging of the election.
So, Maya Wiley, you recently wrote an article headlined Why I Support the Southern Poverty Law Center. Can you explain the SPLC, what it is, and the significance of this indictment?
I certainly can, and it's connected to the conversation we just had. First of all, let me be candid. The Southern Poverty Law Center is a member organization of our over 200 national organizational coalition that is the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. I know them well. I work with them. Let me just say this. Its history is founded on fighting racism, fighting hatred, and fighting extremism. It is its mission, and it is one that it acquitted when people were bombed for demanding their civil rights by racists, by extremists. It brought the Ku Klux Klan, after it lynched a black man in the early 1980s, it brought a civil rights suit that bankrupted it. It runs a tracking program to identify hate groups, track whether they're growing or shrinking. They did this after January 6th. They had been tracking the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, the foot soldiers of the violence in January 6th. Remember, the Proud Boys are the ones that Donald Trump himself, when he ran for president, it's told told to stand
Southern
by
Poverty Law
as
Center.
if they were at his command, and that was before January 6, 2021. The Unite the Right rally was the very rally that Donald Trump had said they're good and bad people on both sides when they were chanting, Jews will not replace us, when their links to anti-Semitism, neo-Nazism, and white supremacy was clear. And the reason I'm saying this is what Southern Poverty Law Center has done is, in addition to ensuring that people know about their rights to vote, in addition to fighting for voting rights in the South, in addition to doing all the things it can to ensure that people have a voice about whether or not they can see a doctor when they're sick, or whether or not they have a fair wage for the work they do. That the other thing they do is track hate in this country. But that has exposed allies of Donald Trump. It has exposed people who are in its administration. It has exposed the very connections
because
that
they're
he himself has
Klansmen.
publicly stated, or that people he is in close relationship have publicly been seen in relationship with. The reason I say all of that is because when I stand by them because I know what this is.
Yeah,
it's political persecution because you have some power of advocacy and voice around the very civil rights we have been fighting for in this country so that we have a democracy.
We're already, as just everyday people, constituents, human beings, are so disempowered in the working class that they are terrified of our response, of us rising up. And so they are taking all of these deplorable measures in order to further disenfranchise people, have a rise in hate crimes, have a rise in violence that they are stoking. Like, this is what happened in Nazi Germany, of this encouraging of other constituents to be terrorizing people, that was part of this larger Nazi agenda to maintain control through fear.
That serves all our needs. And they track hate.
We know that so
across the
many of
board,
them are
not
part
with
of
political
ICE.
ideology other than whether it's extremism. And it matters so much because we're watching a politics that is trying to erase the fact that racism exists.
Yes.
Todd Blanche, on announcing this indictment, said it out loud. He said, they're trying to say that racism is real when it's not. That's basically what those aren't his words, but those were the import of his words. Donald Trump has publicly said that the civil rights laws hurt white men. That's actually a white nationalist trope and talking point. Not to mention how many times we've seen white supremacy and neo-Nazism, rise of hate and anti-Semitism in this country. SPLC's been fighting it. So all I can say is there's a pattern in the development of tyranny in countries across the globe where the person who wants to have that power finds ways to discredit the lawful advocacy of organizations that are fighting to ensure that democracy survives. But democracy doesn't survive in lies, and everything we just heard was a lie.
We just have 10 seconds. Do you think other groups are next? You represent
rifles while
scores of
patrolling?
groups similar to the SPLC.
We've had hundreds of
we're seeing a
organizations
global rise in
refuse to
fascism.
be afraid of this administration.
They're here to help and answer
against lawful activity.
Yeah,
Hundreds.
they're here to
But the reason,
help.
one of the reasons is because
help
everyone understands
whom?
that this administration has been signaling in
system.
multiple ways that it is going to find ways to punish anyone it disagrees with. So yes, I expect that we will see this audition from Todd Blanche to be the people's lawyer is Todd Blanche's audition to show, I'll go after anyone you want me to because we don't like them.
Maya Wiley, I want to thank you for being with us, President and CEO of the
It's
Leadership Conference on
damning
Civil and
that
Human
they're
Rights.
like,
Ran for
oh, we
mayor
don't
in
want money going to
2021.
these white
Thanks for
supremacist
watching
groups.
Democracy Now! on YouTube.
Interesting that you somehow care about these hate groups all of a sudden, because doesn't seem like you're trying to stop them in many other ways. Why are you serving ads specifically to these hate groups to join ICE? Okay. So because of this, we see this redistricting happening all around, that the fascists in power, Republicans, are working at breakneck speed to redistrict. Okay. I did want to look at the comments here. This is an outlet from Boston. Boston, a place that is extremely diverse but has a very strong history of racism. How do they not see the flaw in their reasoning? Drawing a district map defined by the racial makeup of that district is discrimination on the basis of race. Exactly. It's because they are not interested in looking at these flaws. They are looking to justify the white Christian nationalist project. I thought they say we can't get an ID to vote. Yeah. Already disenfranchising so many people, trans people, without like nullifying everyone's identification, that they, like in Utah, making everyone's voting records public, releasing everyone's addresses with their names. This is voter intimidation because they can't win off of popular support. These people just want to cheat to win because they know they can't get the majority vote to win. Yep. Imagine crashing out over not being able to be racist. Yeah. Yeah, and people wonder why. It sounds like she is saying people of color will no longer be able to vote. Yeah. Yeah, we still see some very racist comments, so. This is where we're at. Like, this is why we have so much leftist sentiment rising and leftist populism rising, not only in the US, but throughout the world, because of the very open corruption and power grabs by the ruling class, these billionaires, the global elites who do not care about us as human beings. They only view us as dollar signs to exploit. It's like, and the thing that's ironic is that it's like, oh, if you are disenfranchising so many people, you are making it so that like people aren't able to work, that like people are afraid to go to work. Like, who are you going to have left to exploit? But they don't care about that. This is how you know that it is fascism, because it is cannibalistic. All right, I did want to give an update on this hearing that Hegseth was a part of. I love when he says stuff like that. My generation remembers how long we were in Iraq. Bro, at one point, we're only 2 months into Iraq, too. Yeah. Secretary of War Crimes. Yep. Words of Tupac. They got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. Exactly.
At this point are the reckless, feckless, and defeatist words of congressional Democrats and some Republicans. 2 months in, I remind you, 2 months in to a conflict.
This is why direct action is so important. Organizing and moving in ways that they don't anticipate, because they are going through all of these avenues to just utterly destroy any sort of power that we could have as people. And like what you were saying, Tan, like, this isn't just happening in the US, it's happening all over the world, but especially because the US is this hegemonic imperialist power, that it then is providing this permission structure for other places in the world to act in concert with all of this discrimination and disgusting late stage capitalism.
Lest I remind you, and my generation understands how long we were in Iraq, how long we were in Afghanistan, how long we were in Vietnam. 2 months in on an existential fight for the safety of the American people, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. We are proud of this undertaking. I am proud that President Trump has had the courage to do it, and I look forward to sharing more about what our troops have accomplished.
Secretary Hegseth, tomorrow is 2 months since the...
It's like they're doing the classic, oh, you're talking shit about our idiocy here. You're talking shit about us. Well, guess what? The Democrats hate the troops. It's been 2 months, man. You haven't achieved any military successes. Why can't we just give it up? Why can't we just retreat, man? Please, like open the straight,
is not
please. Jesus
taking
Christ.
precautions
It's not
to
happening
protect
in any
the
other way,
troops.
shape, or form. It's not happening
Pete
militarily.
Hegseth.
Just open it up, man. Just say, listen, my bad. We're giving up on this one. We up. It's okay. Your sycophants will forget. They won't care. Honestly, at the very least, some of your fans that are on the verge of turning because of the gas prices will forget about this little incident. Hegseth,
And we
the
have
nuclear
yet to
facility has been
feel
obliterated.
How much did it
worst
cost American
effects of it.
taxpayers in terms of the strike to the Iranian school where kids were killed? Do you have that number? In terms of the missiles we used?
As I've said, that
Hey, Pete, it looks like you're going a little bit heavy on the foundation. It's really getting into the creases in your face. It doesn't look like you have good setting powder, that you aren't blending into your neck, you aren't blending up into your hairline, that your bronzer looks like shit. Perhaps you should, you could be less bigoted and actually get people who understand makeup and aesthetics, but this is how we know, like, all of these fascists have such incredibly bad taste. It's like they do not value diversity at all. They are not going to take advice from women, queer people, people who actually understand fashion.
unfortunate situation remains under investigation.
You don't know how much it costs the
investigation, but I
taxpayer?
wouldn't tie a cost to that, to anything.
It's a reasonable question.
I cannot believe the way that these people are so careless with your money when it comes to doing wars, specifically wars
acting
that we
like
are
it's absurd that
at the
we would
behest of
even
Israel.
ask
Can you
that a
imagine
representative would
world
ask
where
how much
a
money
sitting
we're paying?
representative asks a question to, like, I don't know, a public health official in any state and goes, where is the accounting for $25 billion? And the public health official goes, I don't know. Like, there is no world. I mean, think about it. Think about how much money is being spent on waging wars. How much money is being spent on waging wars, and these guys don't even think that they have to do the accounting. They don't even have to crunch the numbers. They just throw a number in your direction and go, what are you going to do about it? It's the military, bitch. It's insane. Think about how much the Minnesota Somali fraud was in the news, for how long it was in the news, what actions the administration took as a consequence of Nick Shirley, who I cannot make fun of because I don't want to be called out for ableism on top of the anti-Semitism, apparently. Okay? It's illegal to make fun of Nick Shirley now because it's ableism through and through. Let's be real. He genuinely has a significant mental shortcoming, let's say. I don't want to say disability, but you get what I'm saying. Think about how long that was in the discourse, which was already a case that had been investigated, right? That was already a case that was closed. And yet we talked about it endlessly. Now look at this: unlimited tax dollars. It is not $25 billion that we have spent so far waging war against Iran at the behest of Israel. It is so much more than that. We're not factoring in the loss of assets in this calculation. The operational costs are to the tune of $1 billion a day. So the idea that it's only $25 billion,
like $1 trillion
conservative estimate. It's just a made-up number. So just remember that. Next time
plane
someone
or
goes,
carrier or
pay for it?"
something
When you
that was
ask
shot
for
down.
healthcare, okay? When you ask for better classroom sizes and your local politician goes, we can't pay for it. Yeah, we can't, because all the money is always wasted
Because
in
we
the
have to
direction of
pay
the military
for
industrial
your
complex, so we
destruction.
can generate more unique and creative ways of murdering children overseas and then waste those munitions overseas at the behest and direction of Israel sometimes.
No, sir. I mean, our taxpayer money was going there. Do you know how much it will cost Americans in terms of their increased cost in gas and food over the next year because of the Iran
Cook 'em,
war?
bro.
Good
I would
questions.
simply ask you what the cost is of an Iranian nuclear bomb.
I'm going to give you that.
I would simply ask you what the...
First of all, if that was a sincere concern, which
ridiculous,
it's not,
exactly.
okay? There was one guy,
It's so
a Kenyan Muslim
infuriating
communist by the name of
to be
Barack
like-
Hussein Obama that actually successfully put together by way of
We already don't have that much power, and what they're doing is just trying to ensure that they stay in power. And we see that when people are losing control over their power, that they get increasingly violent, domestically and foreign, but especially when it comes to empires. And this is very clearly the fall of the American empire. And I'm very concerned because Americans are very dumb. Like, that's just a fact. We're very undereducated because of these shitheads who are consistently voting to underfund schools, to make it so that we have very limited access to resources and information, that they have all of these billionaire oligarchs who are controlling algorithms and media outlets. They don't have the support, and so they have to resort to the most violent methods, legislatively, militarily, to oppress people.
diplomacy, a multilateral agreement where the participants were our European allies and even China and Russia that actually put significant checks on the Iranian nuclear program, which they were committed to following through in exchange for sanctions relief. So if you are genuinely worried and disturbed about the likelihood of Iran receiving a nuclear weapon, gaining nuclear arms and engaging in nuclear sovereignty, if you have a real concern there, well, there was one guy who was able to successfully stop that. His name is Barack Hussein Obama. He's a Muslim socialist communist from Kenya, and he was the one who did it. It was called the JCPOA.
Yeah, but playing gotcha questions about domestic things. I'm not.
You're asking. You're saying it's a gotcha question to ask what it's going to be in terms of
not
increase.
blending into his hairline.
Cooking, dude. Okay, Ro.
Yeah.
Okay, Ro. Ro, cook, nah. Okay, I got to workshop that one. But yeah, okay. He's like,
yeah, that was
question. The cost, the unprecedented inflation crisis
yeah.
that Americans are
Ro
experiencing.
Khanna has
you
been
think that's a gotcha question? No, I think that's a pretty
an actual
to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb.
opposition
What would it
to what's
cost? What would you
happening.
pay to ensure Iran doesn't get a nuclear bomb? What would you pay?
Can I reclaim my time? Do you not know? You had no one do the analysis of what the increased cost of gas and food on the American people are going to be?
What is the cost of Iran holding that straight at issue with nuclear weapons?
It's $631 billion, which means it's an increase of $5,000 a year for American households. Now,
no, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Ro, you don't understand. It's worth it. This way, Israel can continue with the greater Israeli project
in the country because of the horrible policies your state pursued.
You know what? It used to be that type of stuff worked. And then you started to lose the people that you...
Here's a better one on this one. He could have been like, so why are you making the rest of the country's gas prices resemble California? Is that what you're trying to do? You're trying to make Texas gas prices resemble California? Stay on message, Pete.
So what is the plan to actually turn all of this lethal kinetic action into an improvement in the nuclear situation? Because we haven't gotten there yet. Play it out for us. How does that happen? How does it actually lead to that result?
Well, I would take issue with the premise of the question that nothing was done. Operation Midnight Hammer was a very effective.
Well, I didn't say nothing was done. I said in this war.
Ultimately,
this war
well, this is under this administration, unlike other administrations, which cut bad deals and pallets of cash with no ability to oversee whether Iran is actually pursuing a nuclear program.
Which is where we're
at. If we want to litigate JCPOA or the Iran deal, our view, the president's view, is that was a very bad deal.
What is his plan?
The money up front.
What's the future?
Okay,
I don't recognize that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a white supremacist symbol.
Guess what? You want to know the irony here?
He has the tattoos to prove it.
We're judging the impact of a deal and how bad it is by how much we give to Iran in terms of money, then there is no way out of this quagmire where Donald Trump won't be giving a load more money to Iran in unfrozen assets to the tune of $20 billion. Barack Obama gave 1.7. And also on top of that, probably maintaining somewhat of a toll system in the Strait of Hormuz, or at least like maintaining control of the Strait of Hormuz in the hands of Iran, which was not a thing before this war. And on top of that, most likely sanctions relief. And not just, and here's the key part, the sanctions relief that Barack Obama was allowed to do to Iran was sanctions relief for Europe. Donald Trump, being the businessman that he is, Donald Trump being the businessman, I'm a numbers guy, okay? I'm a numbers guy, as you know, Patrick Bet David. Donald Trump is going to do a businessman style business deal. And in that business deal, Donald Trump is going to allow American businesses to do business in Iran.
PBD impression is all over
American
them.
businesses to open up shop in Iran, which is, in my opinion, the smart thing to do, okay? We're going to open up Valuetainment headquarters in Tehran. We're going to have the Cuba Day in Tehran. I'm a numbers guy. I did the numbers. I said, Vinny, show me the numbers, Vinny. I said, ChatGPT, we grok it. We ChatGPT it. The numbers. Lots of Cuba Day to be sold in Tehran. Valuetainment Cuba Day. Am I getting a little bit better? I've been practicing. I'm not even kidding. So thank you, Mr. President.
No, it's still pretty bad.
Better. Let's grok this really quick. But yeah, that's the confines of the New Deal that will have sanctions relief. Won't just be sanctions relief for like European partners, like the secondary sanctions that we apply to like anyone that dares do business with Iran, but also sanctions relief for American corporations, so American corporations can actually invest into Iran, which unironically is a good deal. Like if I'm looking at this from an objective perspective, unfreezing Iranian assets and also
Mr.
on top
Beast
of that,
Land
giving Iran some
2.0
symbols of
in
autonomy
Iran.
and doing sanctions relief on Iran and allowing American investments to go into Iran, infinitely better than even the JCPOA.
Oh my God.
It's actually the smart thing to do. It's pro
yeah, that's the
It's a
solution.
good thing, right? But from these guys' assessment, it's unbelievably bad. They were on Barack Obama. The question is, if Barack Obama did this, what would Israel do if Barack Obama had done this with the JCPOA? Okay, because the JCPOA only allowed sanctions relief for European partners, not American corporations. In any case, yeah, pulling out of the Iran deal was a catastrophic mistake, says Tommy Vitor and Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes says, obviously pulling out of the Iran deal was a catastrophic decision by Trump, yet that decision got far less media and political scrutiny than the deal itself. Yep. Anyway, Donald Trump is a very good president. He's going to get the best deal. He's going to get the best deal in Iran.
We had to start this war, you just said, 60 days ago, because the nuclear weapon was an imminent threat. Now you're saying that it was completely
They
obliterated?
had not given up their nuclear ambitions, and they had a conventional shield of thousands of...
So Operation Midnight Hammer accomplished nothing of substance. It left us in
Hello.
exactly the same place we were before. So much so.
You're missing the point. Representative Smith, you're missing the point. It made my dick hard, okay? And that's how we judge our military accomplishments, by how hard it makes our dicks,
Ew.
okay? This is how it works. Yeah, sure, they didn't actually obliterate the nuclear facilities. Sure, we don't even know if the enriched uranium was even in the Isfahan facility. But think about how hard my dick
That
was when
Marxist
I thought
analysis
about the
of Mr.
B-2
Beast
jets
that went
flying
viral
over
clip
Iranian
so much.
airspace and
I
dropping
haven't seen
nuclear-grade
that.
payload on top of these facilities.
I would love
okay?
to
That's
see
the point.
that.
It made my cock hard, and that's what we do things for. It's clearly for no
gonna
real
look this
military
up.
objective, right? So what's the other deal? What's the other
Let's
objective?
watch that
The objective
tomorrow.
is my penis rock hard? The answer is yes. What can it cut? Diamonds. That's right. Hoorah! Now give me some fucking celebration crayons right now, sir.
Their facilities were bombed and obliterated. Their ambitions continued, and they're building a conventional shield.
All right, let me try again.
It's the North Korea strategy. You know this very well. The North Korea strategy was use conventional missiles to prevent anybody from challenging them, so they could slow walk their way to a weapon.
Yeah, also low-key worked for North Korea. And
That was the
also,
first thing
here's a
that
really
came up
cool way to
in my
avoid all of that.
search.
Just don't
It wasn't Mr. Beast, his channel. It was Mr. Beast Marx. And people wonder why there is a rise in Marxism, leftist politics, leftist populism, because this is what happens when people have had fucking enough. Yeah, we'll watch that tomorrow. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
bomb other countries. Like, there's no need for conventional weapons. There's no need for nuclear weapons if there isn't a imminent threat.
4.2 million.
America constantly trying to meddle in the affairs of other countries. And guess what? For the case of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, it worked. It was objectively a W.
Oh, I think I have seen this.
They were able to develop sovereignty.
Recommended
Guess which country
to me,
is
and I
not being
haven't
currently
watched
bombed?
it
Guess
yet.
which country's little schoolgirls did not get murdered? North Korea.
The president has got himself and America stuck in the quagmire of another war in the Middle East. He's desperately trying to extricate himself from his own
thumbnail
mistakes.
looks familiar.
I hope you appreciate how reckless it is. When I said
I think normally when I just see Mr. Beast, I ignore things.
Congressional Democrats at the beginning, that came after watching you say the same thing on CNN this morning, a quagmire. My generation served in a quagmire in Iraq and Afghanistan, years and years of...
Oh my God, you're such a bitch, dude. Ugh, he's just like such a whiny little baby about this too. He's like, oh, you know what's a real quagmire? My generation is getting served a sloppy steak in Iraq. That was a quagmire. Okay, well, you're participating in the new one. The complaint currently is coming in the aftermath of the previous quagmires. The complaint is coming because the previous quagmires took place, okay?
Hello.
And some people have reluctantly, well, they haven't really taken accountability over it, but at least they reluctantly admit that it was a quagmire. So why are we doing a new one? That's the argument.
Of nebulous missions and utopian nation building that led us to nothing.
Yeah, as opposed to this, which is sick. We're just lasering. We're just lasering from afar little schools, you know? Schools with little schoolgirls in it. That's not a quagmire. It's awesome.
2 months in, Congressman, you should know better. Shame on you. Calling this a quagmire 2 months in. The effort, what they've undertaken, what they've succeeded, the success on the battlefield,
2
the
months
strategic
in.
opportunities, the courage of a president to confront a nuclear Iran, and you call it a quagmire, handing propaganda to our enemies? Shame on you for that statement. And statements like that are reckless to our troops. Don't say I support the troops on one hand, and then a 2-month mission is a quag.
Dude. I mean, even from like
Interrupt the guy.
pro-government, pro-military standpoint, the easiest counter to this is, yeah, I do support the troops, which is why I don't want them to fly and do bombing campaigns over Iranian soil and potentially get bombed back by anti-aircraft defense systems that they keep seemingly pulling out of their asses, and then have to waste another $1 billion on trying to save the 2 pilots that were taken out over Iranian airspace. Here's the greatest way to preserve and protect the troops: not send them to Iran for no reason, okay? Like, that's it.
Who would've
Here's
thought?
a great way to save all of our troops, okay? Stop bombing Iran. Stop sending them on suicide missions with no real military objective in mind, simply to satiate
Yeah, and
the
soldiers have come
bloodlust
out
of
since
the
then and
Israeli
been like,
government so
we
that
weren't
can take out
protected,
and
we weren't
destabilize one of the
prepared, they
primary
didn't give us
threats
enough
to the greater
resources and
Israel
cover.
project here. Why is the American government and the American military, the most powerful military on the planet, the most expensive military on the planet, being used to do sanitation duty for a country that is the size of New Jersey? Why are we doing their bidding? What the is this conversation? And then you sit there and you talk about how, like, oh, it's fine if people are paying $5,000 extra at the end of the year. The president evidently being influenced by ChatGPT slop being funneled in by the Israeli lobby groups. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Oh yeah. What a stupid country we are.
Who are you cheering for here?
That's a false equivalation.
And statements like that are reckless to our troops. Don't say I support the troops on one hand, and then a 2-month mission is a quagmire. That's a false equivalation.
This guy's job is to speak, by the way, okay? His previous job was to go on television and speak. False equivalation. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Idiots. I think I'm going to watch this tomorrow as well. David Cross just laying into Bill Maher. That needs to happen. Bill Maher is insufferable. Is that bracelet Haiti? This was originally going to be the bisexual flag, but then I realized I don't have purple. Are these the colors of the Haitian flag? I don't know. This is my poor American education.
House approving of.
Okay, so this is a recent update. House passes Department of Homeland Security funding bill as ICBP fight continues. We, the taxpayers, ran out of money years ago. Yeah, exactly. There needs to be less time off and more work done. Yeah, they've been in session like 35 days. Congress has. I might be being colorblind. Haiti is blue and red. Oh, I mean, it is kind of hard to see. It's like this pinkish and orange and blue. So they're kind of blending in together.
Bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security and end the record-long shutdown here. DHS was going to run out of money tonight at midnight. Scripps News senior congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed joins us now live on Capitol Hill.
Because
so
we
Nate,
need
that bill headed to the president's desk. Let's talk about what's in it and
we
what's
need them to
not
have even
in this
more
funding
money.
version.
A very appropriate question, Maritza, and that's because this bill funds about 90 or more % of the Department of Homeland Security. All of those things that directly touch Americans. TSA at airports, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Coast Guard, U.S. Secret Service protecting the president and his cabinet. Those are now all funded through the end of the fiscal year. Here's what's not funded as part of this package. Anything related to ICE and Border Patrol. Those two areas, Republicans split those out after they were unable to reach an agreement with Democrats. And what they're doing is they're trying to pass this partisan plan to send tens of billions of dollars to those agencies for the next 3 years to fund them through the end of President Trump's term and make sure that they are able to stay funded and keep those agencies afloat. Democrats have proposed some what they're called common sense changes requiring that agents not wear face coverings, that they wear body cameras, that they use judicial warrants. Republicans called those radical demands, and for that reason, they decided to separate those out.
That's just the law, by the way. Saying that they have to obey the law is that it's unreasonable.
The vast majority of the Department of Homeland Security while leaving all of that funding for ICE and Border Patrol separately. Yet in a stunning turn of events this afternoon, Republicans actually voting pretty much unanimously to pass that funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Some ultra-conservatives, including Congressman Chip Roy, a member of the House Freedom Caucus, venting their frustration in the moments after that happened. Take a listen.
It's not how we should be doing it. We were very clear about that. But at some point here, the vote's going to happen. That vote was going to pass if there was a suspension vote. So we agreed to let it go by voice vote. We've been trying to do it the right way, and it's Democrats that are setting the precedent for taking out ICE and Border Patrol out of the Homeland Security funding. And by the way, two can play at that game. So they're setting a precedent for how this is going to play out from now on. And if we want to fund government by reconciliation, then we're welcome to do it. That's what Democrats are doing. Talk to Harry Reid about how
you know who he is by his name. If your name is Chip Roy,
frustration on the House side, by the way,
you should not be trusted.
Re-election in November. Also worth noting, the House of Representatives has one more vote in the next hour, and then they leave on recess until the middle of May. Both chambers of Congress smelling those jet fumes at Washington
on recess again,
Airport, getting out of town, going back
just
to their home
extending
districts, and again getting out of
chaos
DC, but making
and
sure that
violence
DHS was funded ahead of time.
Stealing
Republicans, by the way,
from
still have more work to do
taxpayers
on that partisan plan to fund ICE and Border Patrol. That will resume once the recess is over. Maritza.
Okay, so Nate, two-part question here. Any indication of what changed for House Speaker Mike Johnson to actually bring this after he said he wasn't going to? And who's the winner here? Is there any winner in this deal that was passed?
Well, I think there are Democrats and Republicans who are claiming that they're winners as a result of what happened on the House floor. But what changed? Speaker Johnson had said in the past that he'd be willing to put this up for a vote once he saw adequate developments on the front of that partisan Republican-only plan to fund ICE and Border Patrol. Given that Republicans were able to pass some of the more procedural, kind of earlier votes on that package, put together a budget blueprint to send those tens of billions of dollars to ICE and Border Patrol, clearly he felt more comfortable moving forward with the rest of the package. But certainly this appears to be a major flip. Speaker Johnson had said he would never vote for this. I spoke with half a dozen Republicans yesterday and this morning who said they would never support a package like this before a couple hours later supporting this package. Now, is this a victory for Democrats? Yes and no. What this does do is fund the vast majority of the Department of Homeland Security, but it also means that Democrats have effectively lost their leverage with trying trying to get some of those changes to the way that Immigration Enforcement and Border Patrol operate in this country. That's because Republicans are now going with this partisan plan to pass funding for those two agencies without any Democrat support, meaning without any of those what Democrats called common sense changes as part of that funding.
What Democrats call...
I've never asked a...
We obviously know this seems like a right-wing outlet. I'm not familiar with Scripps News, but claiming their common sense. Yeah, it's following the fucking law. Yeah, we the taxpayers are out of money years ago. Quit with the BS. ICE has already been funded. Yeah. I didn't get this much recess in kindergarten. If Democrats have a problem with Homeland Security, then I have a problem with Democrats. Oh my God.
Colleague in the Republican Party ever to violate a core principle, but sometimes we have to give up on our preferences because
We're so
in a large
fucked.
body. On some of these bills, some of the ones that I've just named for you, they're so complicated and so complex that you literally had irreconcilable demands on either side of the House Republican Conference.
The
So it
only
takes a
thing
long
that
time
can really
to work
save
through
us
that and get
is
people to consensus.
widespread
We do that patiently, we do it
revolution.
because we must, and we ultimately deliver. Don't doubt the House Republican majority.
Speaker Johnson with some words expressing triumph after that bill passed. Again, still a
I'm
lot
looking
more to do on
impressed
funding
by
for
that.
the Department of Homeland Security,
Ew.
specifically for Immigration Enforcement and Border Patrol. The House of Representatives and the Senate expected to take that up once they return from their recess midway through the month of May. Who knows where we'll be by then, Maritza?
And that flip, Nate, what I was going to say is that that's exactly why journalists ask the same questions over and over and over, because as we know, things can
Sometimes we
turn
get
on a
different
dime.
answers.
Absolutely. Or just see...
Okay, I'm done with them. Anyway, moving along. So this is a TED Talk. I usually give a disclaimer with TED Talks that they are more of a classist enterprise, that they don't always get people who necessarily have a lot of expertise on things. Like, for example, Ghislaine fucking Maxwell gave a TED Talk on the environment. Like, why was she there? She's not an expert. So that's the disclaimer, but this is a good one about the chemistry of community building as we get into this discussion about relationships and the biological effects.
Dr. G. Dr. G. Yes, Jalil. We're at this conference and I'm trying to understand why
This is so quiet.
nobody looks like me or sound like me is here. Well, you know, Jalil, a lot of people are either in prison or not really interested in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. We're gonna have to change that. That was the conversation I had with one of my mentors as I was overseas in Italy, trying to understand why I was the only guy from Philadelphia here discussing scientific innovations, which motivated me to do something extraordinary. You see, when I left Italy after that conference and then finished my graduate work 2 years later, I didn't take the typical postdoctoral, as we call it, career, which is go into industry or go to a nice lab. No, I chose to go back to my community, North Philadelphia, South Philadelphia, where I was bred, to give back to my community so I can see more people that look like me in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And since I wasn't really a good communicator at the time, I said, well, let me try to communicate the message through STEM. Still make it easier, but still do it through STEM, which again is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So, you see this periodic table, right? All of us nerdy chemists, we use this periodic table. This is like our Bible to anything we're trying to do. But I want you to visualize, matter of fact, let me take it back. Let's even just look at the history of the periodic table. The periodic table was formulated and created by Dmitri Mendeleev. And his inspiration to creating this table was such. He said, you know, I dreamt of elements arranged in specific ways that serve their purpose. However, I'm going to leave some spaces because there are some elements that are yet to be discovered that need to serve their purpose. What do I mean by that? And how does it relate to you today? Well, I'm glad you're here to listen. You're in for a treat. Because first off, I want you to really think we're a periodic table of community, not elements, but community, where we have elements on that table, but there are still some empty spaces that have yet to be discovered. What do I mean by that? You are an element. Yes, I'm talking about you. You are an element. How you an element? Well, element is only composed of two things: a physical characteristic or physical property, and chemical property or chemical characteristic. What do you mean by that? Well, physical characteristic can go as such. If I have a beard or if I shave off my face, I am still me. However, in terms of chemical characteristics, that's something that happens on the inside. It's all depending on how you react to your surroundings. Example, on the chemistry side, you put sodium and oxygen, it blows up. So let me ask you this question as you thinking about it. What happens if you being placed in an environment? Whether it's your neighborhood, where's that person you really don't like, do you react to them or you stay cool and move on? Whatever your answer is, you just helped yourself acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses. And therefore, you just defined yourself in being what we call an element. Once you find out who you are in terms of your strengths and your weaknesses, you then go to the bonding experience. What does that mean? Well, you already know your strengths, but you need somebody to help you out on your weakness. So that's where the bonding comes into play. You know, in science, we call this experimentation, where we connect one element with another, or let me get it right for my scientists in the room, ions. You know, one element cannot combine with another. We call that a bonding experiment. But that happens through multiple interactions. They is in trial and error. What we do as people, we call networking, right? So in networking, we find some people we like, and we find some people we really don't like. So what do? We try to connect to those people that we like, but we try to not connect those people that we don't like. We call that attraction and repelling in chemistry. But the interesting thing is, once you attract and bond to the people that's going to carry you forward throughout your journey, you then go to this experience, which is called the compound. So what is the compound? The compound is nothing more than just two ions linking together, or two elements coming together and strengthening now their bond between the two. Now, I'm a chemist, so I got to give a little story. Let me tell you how table salt formed.
We creating a compound here?
So, you have sodium. He's on the left side. He's trying to figure out who he can bond with because, you know, sodium ion, they lack what we call an electron. They lacking something. They lacking, you know, $1, $100, whatever you want to think. That's the ion. They lacking it. So they jump around the table, try to figure out who they can bond with. They find magnesium, which probably next to it. They're like, nah, I don't want to bond with him. He broke like me. He broke $2, honey, right? So he's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So he keep moving across the table. See aluminum? Nah, he broke like me. I can't. Come on. Like I said, it's the trial error period, right? But as soon as he finds something called chloride,
compounds. Yep.
Who's wealthy in electron, who have all the money, basically.
Get
not like the noble gases,
kinetic
though,
energy,
but have all the money. Connect with them to form a strong bond called sodium chloride, in today's language called table salt. So what am I saying in terms of all this chemistry stuff, right? Let me switch back to everyday language. I'm basically saying that if we connect and follow through with our connections and strengthen the bond, we'll be able to form a compound that will serve a purpose, just like sodium chloride with table salt. You see, if we serve a purpose on a small scale, we'll be able to connect with other compounds on a large scale. Let me give you some context. You know, in chemistry, we have multiple compounds coming together too. Think about drugs. Think about the cereal you eat. Think about the food that you eat. You look on the side where it says nutritional facts, and you see all these vitamins and minerals. Those are nothing but compounds coming together to serve a purpose that benefit your body. So think about the benefit for your community. Thus, going back to the title, the chemistry of community building. If we all come together with our individual purposes, we can bridge a community, build a community, strengthen the bonds with each and other compounds to bond together, to actually form these big compounds to serve a greater purpose. But, I'm talking too further, so let me bring it back real quick. We have this periodic table. And in this periodic table, there are elements. Like I said before, my call to action is you are element. You just got to discover and find yourself and figure out where you fit on the table. Thank you.
I like the analogy there. As we're getting more into relationships. Okay, so here is a video on prosocial behavior that discusses the benefits of engaging with other people in a way that actually builds and is based on respect.
Prosocial behavior. Prosocial behavior occurs when...
At first I thought this was AI and I was like, no, but it came out in 2018. So, and then as she gets talking, I'm like, oh, this is a
people
human.
act to benefit others rather than themselves. Altruism, cooperation, and caregiving are a few examples of prosocial behavior. Prosocial behavior is a central part of morality. As social psychologist Daniel Batson notes, much of interpersonal morality involves giving weight to the interests and desires of others in situations in which our interests and theirs conflict. Research reveals that those who act prosocially tend to be happier, to be healthier, and to live longer. Those who don't act prosocially tend to suffer the psychological cost that comes with guilt. Prosocial behavior is contagious. Studies show that people who see others act prosocially are more likely to do so themselves. People also seem to have an innate preference for prosocial behavior. For example, in one study, even babies preferred to play with a doll that they saw act in a helpful way over another doll that they saw act in a selfish way. Law professor Lynn Stout observes unselfish prosocial behavior is so omnipresent in American society that it often goes unnoticed. Indeed, consider how frequently people help each other, donate to charity, and volunteer.
It definitely has
For
gone
example,
down.
in 2014, charitable giving reached an all-time high with more than $358 billion in donations.
Creating
and overall,
antisocial
45%
behaviors.
of Americans volunteer, making the United States third in the world for offering
capitalism.
time and talents to help others. So, while prosocial behavior may often go unnoticed, it can be argued that helping others is the cornerstone of a just and decent society.
Yeah, not self-interest, Adam Smith. Okay. So, getting to this paper. Establishing links between relationship cycling, relational stress, and well-being. So, as I stated before, this was shared by Tan. Thank you very much, Tan. This is specifically about romantic relationships, but it can apply to other relationships as well, like with family. That's something that I relate to, of like reading through part of this. I haven't read through all of it, but how you can see some of these same patterns in other relationships. Okay. On-again, off-again cycling is prevalent, and partners in these relationships experience lower relational quality and more negative interaction patterns, increasing their risk for compromised relational and individual health. Conceptualizing relationship cycling as a chronic stressor, we assess the association between cycling, relational stress, and compromised well-being. For example, psychological and physical symptoms. Findings from 4 samples showed 1, cyclical partners reported more relational stress and psychological symptoms than non-cyclical partners. 2, the number of breakup renewal cycles was positively associated with relational stress. 3, negative interaction patterns interacted with cycling to predict relational stress. And 4, cycling was indirectly associated with compromised well-being, psychological and physical symptoms through relational stress. Collectively, these suggest cycling is a chronic stressor, and partner cycling and negative interaction patterns may compound, so we're talking about compounds, in creating relational stress. Consequently, additional research is warranted to test a proposed model integrating relationship and stress theories to unpack how cycling is associated with stress and well-being over time. And just to tie in that other video that we watched right before this, it diminishes this cycle of stress. It diminishes the capacity for people to have more empathy and therefore more respect for each other. Many adults have experienced at least one romantic relationship in which they experience a minimum of one breakup renewal, or just relationships that are tempestuous. Partners in these relationships report lower relational quality compared to those who remain stably together. Theories of stress and turbulence in relationships infer that these negative interaction patterns and the general upheaval of relationship instability could accumulate and adversely affect partners' general health or well-being. Initial evidence suggests that these negative interaction patterns and their resulting mental and physical health challenges are exacerbated by each additional cycle. Yet, despite the continued assumption that stress may be a key explanation of why breakups and renewals are particularly detrimental to well-being, there is limited direct empirical evidence of the link between relationship cycling and relational stress. We analyze the association between relationship cycling, relational stress, and compromised well-being. General conceptualization of personal well-being to include impairment in both psychological and physical symptoms, across several samples to provide a foundation for future theorizing and research. I love this because it's providing like scientific, evidence-based proof or data that shows how sometimes it is good to cut certain people off, that there tends to be some propagandizing at times of like, oh, you can like fix this, or always giving people a chance. And it's like, if there are relationships that are hurting you and it doesn't seem like it's going to get better, it's like the data is showing that it will probably get worse. So like, even though like that can be a painful experience of having some distance, ultimately it will keep you healthier physically, psychologically, and the other person or people, depending on your situation. Relationships can be a source of support, but they can also be a source of stress when they are unstable or end. Based on previous research, we argue that cycling represents a chronic stressor to the partners involved in these relationships. Using Randall and Bodenman's distinctions of types of stress, we focus on internal stress, specifically related to interaction patterns between partners or other people, which can also include like family, friends. Research on romantic relationships across social science fields, communication studies, family science, social psychology, has established links between stress internal to the relationship, as a result of detrimental interaction dynamics, and decreased relational quality and overall health or well-being. This connection is illustrated by the research showing that the dynamics associated with cycling are linked with partners' mental health, including increased depression and anxiety symptoms, even when accounting for aggression and structural factors. Additionally, mothers in cyclical relationships were more likely to experience mental health issues, similar to mothers who experience permanent dissolution, than those who remain stably together with their partners. So, like, and that's with, like, in a good, healthy relationship. Obviously, it is preferred for people to not be in a relationship if it is harmful in other ways, even if it isn't on again, off again. Scholars consistently demonstrate that breakups alone can be distressing events, and a prolonged pattern of entering and exiting the same relationship may be particularly stressful, as it repeatedly disrupts standard patterns of behavior. Monk et al. Argued that whereas the distress caused by one breakup might be fleeting, the cumulative effect of multiple breakups might have a stronger effect on well-being. Similarly, using the stress process perspective, Halpern, Meakin, and Turney argued that repeated breakups and renewals foster uncertainty and impair adjustment. Daly et al. Also found that relational stress varied by how cyclical patterns perceived the stability of their relationships. Those who anticipated continued cycling reported more stress than those who believed they achieved stability. or would not break up again. Thus, we argue that a pattern of cycling exacerbates relational stress over time. So, like, relating this back, again, like, in a familial manner, like, that has been a pattern in my family of, like, people, like, cutting others off and then coming back, and, like, that pattern continuing through generations, and how it creates a lot of stress. It's like, even if nothing stressful is happening, even just like the thought of encountering people or knowing that you will have like certain events coming up, like that increases stress. Although cyclical relationships are assumed to be unstable and more stressful than those without a history of cycling, only the few studies noted above have assessed this assumption. Additionally, no studies have specifically assessed the association between the internal relational stress with cycling and compromised well-being. More generally, no specific theory explains this process, particularly with regard to fluctuations in relationship status, multiple breakups and renewals. As such, we propose a model to help explicate how cycling is associated with well-being. The model generally depicts how negative interaction patterns are linked with relational stress, or stress experienced due to dynamics internal to the relationship, which is then related to compromised well-being, or psychological and physical symptoms resulting from stress. These associations between problematic interactions, relational stress, and well-being are modeled to become more entrenched and mutually compound with increasing breakup and renewal cycles, or the thicker lines that the spiral descends in the figure. We explicate this model using previous stress theories and research, as well as research on cycling relationships below. Okay. I'm just looking through this to make sure. Okay. Figure 1. Proposed model of stress and well-being in cyclical relationships. Because cyclical partners appear to have more negative interaction patterns and less relational quality, even before these couples break up a first time, interesting, the vulnerability stress adaptation, VSA, and cumulative risk models, CR, would suggest cyclical patterns are likely bringing with them characteristics, or enduring vulnerabilities or risks, that contribute to these negative interaction patterns. As such, cyclical partners' interaction patterns are likely a potent cause of their relational stress, especially as compared to non-cyclical partners, and a cause of their breakup renewal cycling as well. The stress generation model, SGM, suggests that partners with lower relational quality have fewer resources to navigate relationship challenges. Yeah, people have shorter fuses, there's less of a threshold for like understanding in general, having empathy in a situation, contributing to less effective resolution of issues and greater relationship stress. Similarly, the theory of resilience and relational load, DRRL, suggests that cyclical partners are accumulating less capital, positive dynamics, to buffer against relationship challenges, putting them at risk for a depletion of resources, leading to less resilience. Yeah, so people are getting less out of it and they're getting more stress. Consequently, in line with prominent stress theories, the relational stress generated from problematic dynamics is likely a key mechanism in compromising cyclical partners' overall health and well-being, as stress is a critical antecedent for psychological and physical well-being symptomology. I think AdBlock is getting rid of my images. Oh. Yeah, I think you're right. Open image in new tab. Didn't even notice. Oh, yep, there we go. That's the spiral it was referring to. Relationship stress, well-being, how it just keeps going further and further down. A powerful visual. Put the file. Oh, thank you. These links between problematic interaction dynamics, relational stress, and compromised well-being are likely exacerbated with each breakup and renewal cycle. If partners carry unresolved issues or uncertainties, as well as compromised well-being into a new renewal, they likely have an even greater depletion of resources with which to navigate problematic interactions. Applied relational turbulence theory, RTT, it is possible that increased uncertainty and fluctuating dynamics in cyclical relationships may put these partners on alert. Yeah, where it's like your neural pathways are like, this brought you stress in the past, I'm trying to protect you. Oh, thank you. And contribute to even less constructive communication, like avoidance, conflict, and a greater sense of instability or turbulence. In cyclical relationships, greater relational uncertainty is indeed related to less efficacy in discussing relationship issues. Further, these problematic relationship dynamics, more conflict, less support, and validation, are exacerbated as the number of cycles increases. It's got all the images now. Okay, cool. Is this a DM on Twitch or on Discord? Oh, here we go. It's on Discord. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I downloaded it, so it would be better. Here we go. This is also just to reiterate of like, it's evidence of the harm that can happen from abusive relationships as well, of like when people are going back together, how it ultimately is hurting both parties, but especially the person who is being abused. This isn't necessarily like talking about abuse specifically, but it is very real to feel like there is less trust, there are more issues that are being brought in when things are not resolved, like in my own family, of like this pattern of not talking about any sort of issues that happen. It increases stress for everyone. And so like each time there is more conflict, there's even less of a threshold for being able to handle it in a manner that is respectful. Some people having less of a threshold than others. Okay. Although the theories reviewed above typically feature specific and often external threats to the relationship, we propose that, given the known characteristics of cyclical relationships, cycling in relationships presents an overarching internal chronic stressor to the relationship. In summarizing our proposed model, we argue that cyclical partners have persistent vulnerabilities that compromise their ability to resolve the problematic issues or incompatibilities that their relationships present. These less effective or unfulfilling interaction patterns that create couples' cyclical nature also create relational stress, which in turn compromises their well-being. Further, with each renewal, cyclical partners are likely no better equipped to manage the unresolved issues and problematic patterns, and have also accumulated additional relational stress. Yes. In other words, these partners have more stress in addition to less resources or reserves to manage them. Yeah, that is so real. As suggested by Carney and Bradbury, there can be a, quote, vicious cycle, end quote, in terms of partners enduring vulnerabilities and their adaptations, interaction patterns, that creates additional stress. These accrued negatives should thus lead to greater compromised well-being across additional relational transitions. To test this model, we use data from our 4 previous datasets. Although no individual dataset has all the variables to assess the full model and all are correlational in nature, we test different aspects of the model with each. Combined, our aim is to initially test this proposed model and provide a warrant and guidance for future research to more fully assess these associations over time. First, to establish that cyclical partners experience more relational stress and compromised well-being, we assess this in 2 ways: comparing cyclical relationships to non-cyclical relationships, here termed cycling status, and through the number of breakup and renewal cycles, the latter of which taps into the cumulative effects of cycling. To address a more general sense of well-being, we assess compromised well-being through psychological, such as feeling anxious, depressed, irritable, alone, and physical symptoms, headaches, stomach aches, illness that can result from chronic stress. I went too far. Okay. Interesting. So it's getting the various groups to assess how repeated cycling exacerbates the association between problematic interaction patterns and relational stress. We propose the following. Problematic interaction, predict relational stress. With the existing data, we can also test whether cycling is indirectly associated with well-being through relational stress, a key mechanism that has been assumed but not assessed in previous research. Therefore, we propose cycling is indirectly associated with compromised well-being through relational stress. The current study thus makes several contributions. First, we test a proposed model integrating previous theory and research explicitly incorporating relationship cycling to understand the connections between relational stress and well-being. Although current theories might accommodate fluctuations in relationship status, this has not been previously explicated. Second, we assess the role of relational stress, which has been largely assumed based on cyclical partners' lower relational quality. This allows us to better establish cycling as an internal chronic stressor. Third, we focus on a more general sense of well-being, assess depression and anxiety, and Halpern, Meakin, and Turney assess depression, problematic drinking, and mental health treatment, yet neither assessed physical symptoms associated with cycling, despite health literatures demonstrating the impact of relationships on physical well-being. Connecting the various findings from the previous studies and integrating existing theories, we explore how relationship cycling is associated with partners' relational stress and sense of well-being. This is also just going to prove other situations, not just romantic relationships, but when we encounter people and there is a negative interaction that happens, it keeps happening over time, and engaging with people and then not seeing them again, that as we're talking about politics, that there is even less of a threshold for being able to resolve those things, but how we can fall into the trap of being if I can convince them of this, for example, family members holding fascist beliefs, of feeling stress, broaching, or friends, loved ones of other kinds, romantic relationships, that each time you return to the topic, if it is not resolved or there is not a way to actually have a meeting of minds, it only increases the stress and makes it so that people are not engaging in a prosocial manner. Okay. So just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip down to the discussion. The aims of this paper were to initially test a proposed model examining the association between relationship cycling, relational stress, and well-being. Using 4 different samples, we found that 1, cyclical partners reported more relational stress, and to a lesser extent, more compromised psychological well-being. 2, both cycling status and number of renewals was associated with relational stress. 3, negative communication patterns interacted with cycling and predicting relational stress. And 4, relational stress and well-being were interrelated in ways to suggest an indirect effect between cycling and well-being through relational stress. Relatively strong association, so it's proving their hypothesis correct. Relatively strong associations were found between cycling and relational stress in all samples assessed. Damn. Cyclical partners reported more stress than non-cyclical partners, and a greater number of breakup and renewal cycles was associated with greater relational stress. The findings regarding number of renewals provides evidence for the cumulative effect of multiple breakup and renewal cycles, as argued by Monk et al. And Halpern, Meakin, and Turney. Stress theories and research on relational stress purport that the stressor and the means with which partners navigate the stressor mutually compound so that lower relational quality and negative interaction patterns spiral into worse outcomes. Yeah. Theoretically, the increased uncertainty and fluctuations in relational status may create a continuous sense of turbulence, which typically leads to biased cognitions, stronger emotions, and difficult interactions. Yeah, of like, even if there isn't something necessarily like negative happening, like something that they're doing, it can be like perceived in that way. And therefore, that makes it a negative interaction. This also supports our integration of several theories to suggest that cyclical partners enter each subsequent cycle at a deficit to manage the problematic dynamics or challenges that their relationships present. As such, cycling is likely a chronic stressor that ultimately may have compounding implications for partners' well-being. Although the current findings only showed weak links between cycling and psychological and physical well-being, this could be due to the generality of the symptoms measured, headaches, loss of appetite, rather than centering on depression or anxiety as in previous studies. Further, we only assess the frequency of these symptoms and not their subjective severity or perceived increases over time. Yeah, that would be interesting to look at as well. And that would be a very long-form study, I'm sure. Yet the proposed model suggests that relational stress mediates the link between relationship dynamics, cycling and problematic interaction patterns, and well-being. In support of this, the test of indirect effects suggested that greater relational stress is a potential mechanism of driving compromised well-being. In addition, given that the presence or absence of cycling might be more connected with psychological well-being, whereas number of cycles might be more connected with physical well-being, psychological symptoms may be a more proximal outcome of relationship cycling, and physical symptoms of the stress stemming from these relationships might manifest later. Interesting. Yeah, so like prolonged psychological stress leads to physical symptoms. That makes sense. That tracks with bodies and trauma. Similar to the allostatic load model. These suppositions, however, need to be substantiated with longitudinal research to test the proposed mediating role of relational stress with a variety of well-being measures. Yeah, I'm sure that would also be very expensive to do over time, the longitudinal studies. Extending previous research, these findings also show that those who cycle and those with a greater number of cycles have more aggression and difficulties in navigating conflict. Cycling and problematic interaction patterns may be mutually exacerbating relational stress, with conflict and aggression potentially playing prominent roles. Specifically, although conflict and renewals made unique contributions in predicting stress as main effects, aggression may be explaining stress more as compared to number of renewals given the lack of main effect for renewals alongside aggression. Yet the correlation between cycling and aggression could be masking the individual contribution of renewals. Interesting. Regardless, the interactions between renewals and both conflict and aggression were significant, suggesting that they combine in contributing to relational stress as hypothesized. The nature of these interactions showed that although all slopes were positive, the slopes were stronger with fewer renewals. This could suggest that conflict and aggression are more salient in relationships with fewer renewals. In other words, those experiencing fewer challenges in other areas of the relationship, fewer changes in relationship status, might be more affected by instances of conflict and aggression. A parallel explanation is that there is a ceiling effect for those with more renewals. Oh, that like people reach a breaking point. These partners might consistently deal with relational challenges, and conflict and aggression might already be involved in the relationship status fluctuation process, yes. Thus, additional conflict or aggression might not substantially increase their stress levels. Thus, the punctuation and progression of the interplay between cycling and problematic interaction patterns could be examined in future longitudinal research. I would also be interested in seeing like what is like they're talking about the psychology of it, of like what the neurobiology of it is, of like how it's affecting people's neural pathways, like the like cortisol that is in their system and how that gets activated. In general, the findings support the proposed model in suggesting the associations among problematic interaction patterns, relational stress, and well-being are exacerbated by repeated breakup and renewal cycles. Additional... Hi, buddy! What's up? Just walked in to give a few meows and walked out. Okay. Additional tests of this model should address the existing vulnerabilities that might both incite problematic interactions but also instigate cycling. Theories relevant to stress in relationships suggest cyclical partners could have enduring vulnerabilities that make them less able to manage stressors. This would add to the existing proposed model to understand what prompts the development, as well as the perpetuation of cyclical relationships and the relevant outcomes for these relationships and their partners. The current findings additionally support explicitly incorporating the number of cycles within a theoretical model of relational stress and well-being for these relationships. Limitations. The findings should be interpreted within the context of additional methodological limitations. Although quality checks were conducted, the validity of crowdsourcing data cannot be confirmed, despite gaining a greater diversity of participants and being comparable to traditional data collection methods. Different ages, relationship lengths, and biological sex, except for the college students in Sample 2, were represented, but the samples were largely white and heterosexual. Yeah, I was wondering about that. That would be interesting to see with other groups of people. Marginalized people, specifically. Further specific data were not collected on gender identity or sexual orientation. As such, future samples should target a greater diversity of ethnicity, race, culture, socioeconomic status, education, income, sexual orientations, and gender identities. Additionally, although we had data on cohabitation and relationship status, dating, engaged, married, for some of the samples, but not all, future research should assess how the proposed associations vary by these stages of relationship. Yeah, that would be interesting. Just looking at all of these variables. We also did not control for who initiated the transitions, and how that might disproportionately affect the psychological and physical outcomes in cyclical relationships. The data collected typically asked about only the most recent breakup and renewal, even if there were multiple cycles. Yet incorporating the degree to which participants initiate these transitions might yield additional insights about their stress and well-being. The same measures were used, but were assessed in slightly different ways across the samples. Further, not all variables were assessed in all 4 samples, thereby limiting our ability to see trends across samples. The symptoms measures were also assessed on a different time frame in the past month as compared to the other measures. Oh yeah, it is measures, across the relationship in general. Assessing all measures on the same time frame and assessing the severity of the symptoms might yield stronger associations. Numerous analyses were conducted across the study, and some only approach significance and should be interpreted with caution. Additional research is needed to substantiate the existence as well as the strength of these associations. Finally, as noted above, all data were correlational and causality cannot be established. Longitudinal research would better test the progression of cycling and stress. Conclusion. Given the prevalence of relationship cycling and its association with lower relational quality and more negative interaction patterns, these partners are at an increased risk for compromised psychological and physical well-being. Based on a proposed model, this paper provides a collective of analyses to show that relationship cycling, presence versus absence, as well as number of cycles, was associated with greater relational stress and, to a lesser extent, compromised well-being. Cycling, however, might have a more indirect effect on well-being through relational stress, and negative interaction patterns might fuel the relational stress associated with cycling. The current findings thus warrant future larger-scale longitudinal research that builds on the proposed theoretical model to explicate these associations over time and repeated cycles. Wow, that is very cool. It's confirming, like what like we all kind of like think of as like on again, off again relationships, or having unstable relationships in general, that it can be stressful, but how it can be hard to separate the feeling of like, is this coming from a previous cycle, a previous argument, a previous interaction, or is this happening now? Is this in my head? Am I making this up? That like there is a lot of stress that goes into that, and how ultimately it is a good and for our own health and the health of the other people involved to put an end to the cycle. That especially this idea of like, oh, we can like reform people, or like they will change, that having that kind of mindset that often is like supported by certain like religious doctrine, like especially in like Christianity, or like, for example, Mormonism, what I grew up in, of like, no, like relationships are everything, or like family is everything, or like for people who are in unhappy marriages, that people are expected to just continue to be in this miserable cycle rather than doing what is best for them, for all of the parties involved, even if it is a painful experience, because ultimately you are saving not only like pain, like emotional pain, but like psychological and physiological pain as well. Wow. This also just goes to show that like people who we have stressful interactions with, especially when it comes to like these differences in morals, when it comes to politics and how human beings are being perceived and treated, that it is very difficult to actually have constructive conversations about things when there have already been patterns of dysfunction and these negative interactions that are continuing to increase the stress. And I think, especially like talking about the US right now, but I mean, as we've been talking about global fascism rising all around the world, clearly, because global, is that it's really hard to keep having relationships with people when they have shown especially this like antisocial lack of empathy towards other human beings, and how difficult it is to actually have prosocial interactions with them when they have these reinforced pathways and stress responses to certain conversations, or like feeling like they're being attacked when just like talking about like privilege or something, that like each time we revisit it is harmful, and it's good to protect ourselves. Anyway, thank you for sharing that, Tan. I think it just like helps to illustrate how taking care of ourselves and not falling prey to like this myth of like you just have to keep working at things and like being patient, that like there are times when it is a moral good to cut things off. Hello, Aliana. I get this sweater. It's a little goose. I guess it's not a little, it's pretty big. I think I got it. I've had it forever. I think I've had this since like high school, and I'm 31. I think it was H&M. Yeah, I don't endorse H&M. They're very like fast fashion, but thank you. I do enjoy it. It is like a pretty hefty sweater, which is rare for H&M, because normally it feels like their clothes are going to, like, blow away in the wind. But thank you. Okay, so moving on to the reading, and I think I may just read a few pages of this, just because I have some things after this. We saw that Sir Percy, Marguerite's husband, that he went away on his schooner because he has like a shit ton of money and free time to go help out her brother, Armand, and that she discovered this little seal on a ring that had the symbol of the Scarlet Pimpernel. So now she's like, who could he be? Chapter 19, The Scarlet Pimpernel. At what particular moment the strange doubt first crept into Marguerite's mind, she could not herself afterwards have said. With the ring tightly clutched in her hand, she had run out of the room, down the stairs, and out into the garden, where in complete seclusion, alone with the flowers and the river and the birds, she could look again at the ring and study that device more closely. Stupidly, senselessly, now, sitting beneath the shade of an overhanging sycamore, she was looking at the plain gold shield with the star-shaped little flower engraved upon it. Bah! Bah! It was ridiculous. She was dreaming. Her nerves were overwrought, and she saw signs and mysteries in the most trivial coincidences. Had not everybody about town recently made a point of affecting the device of that mysterious and heroic Scarlet Pimpernel, even though it's like the exact same shape and size that she saw in these notes? She's not the brightest for being called the cleverest woman in Europe. According to whom? Did she not herself wear it embroidered on her gowns, set in gems and enamel in her hair? What was there strange in the fact that Sir Percy should have chosen to use the device as a seal ring? He might easily have done that. Yes, quite easily. Oh, getting a spam call. And besides, what connection could there be between her exquisite dandy of a husband? Same. I'm a dandy. With his fine clothes and refined, lazy ways, and the daring plotter who rescued French victims from beneath the very eyes of the leaders of a bloodthirsty revolution. French victims? Are they victims, though? Because it seems like they had been oppressing people for a very long time and hoarding wealth and using people for cheap labor and not giving them enough for their wages to actually let them eat. Her thoughts were in a whirl, her mind a blank. She did not see anything that was going on around her and was quite startled when a fresh young voice called to her across the garden. "Chérie, chérie, where are you?" said little Suzanne, fresh as a rosebud, with eyes dancing with glee, and brown curls fluttering in the soft morning breeze, came running across the lawn. "They told me you were in the garden," she went on prattling merrily, and throwing herself with a pretty, girlish impulse into Marguerite's arms. "So I ran out to give you a surprise. You did not expect me quite so soon, did you, my darling little Margot chérie?" Marguerite, who had hastily concealed the ring in the folds of her kerchief, tried to respond gaily. Same. And unconcernedly to the young girl's impulsiveness. "Indeed, sweet one," she said with a smile. "It is delightful to have you all to myself, and for a nice whole long day. You won't be bored?" "Oh, bored? Margot, how can you say such a wicked thing? Why? When we were in the dear old convent together, we were always happy when we were allowed to be alone together. And to talk secrets." The two young girls had linked their arms in one another's and began wandering round the garden. "Oh, how lovely your home is, Margot, darling," said little Suzanne enthusiastically. "And how happy you must be." "Aye, indeed. I ought to be happy, oughtn't I, sweet one?" said Marguerite with a wistful sigh. "How sadly you say it, chérie. Ah, well, I suppose now that you are a married woman, you won't care to talk about secrets with me any longer? Oh, what lots and lots of secrets we used to have at school. Do you remember? We did not even confide to Sister Teresa all the holy angels, though she was such a dear. And now you have... My French accent's so bad. Gay. Yeah, exactly. Same. And now you have one all-important secret, eh, little one? Said Marguerite merrily, which you are forthwith going to confide to me. Nay, you need not blush, chérie, she added, as she saw Suzanne's pretty little crimson face with blushes. Faith, there's naught to be ashamed of. He is a noble and true man, and one to be proud of as a lover. Oh. And as a husband. How very French of them to lead with lover. Indeed, chérie, I am not ashamed, rejoined Suzanne softly, and it makes me very, very proud to hear you speak so well of him. I think Maman will consent, she added thoughtfully, and I shall be oh so happy. But, of course, nothing is to be thought of until Papa is safe. Papa, is probably how she would say it. Marguerite started. Suzanne's father, the Comte de Tournay, one of those whose life would be jeopardized if Chauvelin succeeded in establishing the identity of the Scarlet Pimpernel. She had understood all along from the Comtesse, and also from one or two of the members of the League, that their mysterious leader had pledged his honor to bring the fugitive Comte de Tournay safely out of France, whilst little Suzanne, unconscious of all, save her own all-important little secret, went prattling on. Marguerite's thoughts went back to the events of the past night. Armand's peril, Chauvelin's threat, his cruel either-or, which she had accepted, calling Chauvelin actually advocating for the working class cruel. And then her own work in the matter, which should have culminated at 1 o'clock in Lord Grenville's dining room, when the relentless agent of the French government would finally learn who was this mysterious Scarlet Pimpernel, who so openly defied an army of spies and placed himself so boldly and for mere sport on the side of the enemies of France. Oh, he's so bold and selfless when he is hoarding all of this wealth and only interested in saving the ruling class. Since then, she had heard nothing from Chauvelin. She had concluded that he had failed, and yet she had not felt anxious about Armand because her husband had promised her that Armand would be safe. But now, suddenly, as Suzanne prattled merrily along, an awful horror came upon her for what she had done. Chauvelin had told her nothing, it was true, but she remembered how sarcastic and evil he looked when she took final leave of him after the ball. Yeah, he's evil. Had he discovered something then? Had he already laid his plans for catching the daring plotter red-handed in France and sending him to the guillotine without compunction or delay? Marguerite turned sick with horror, and her hand convulsively clutched the ring in her dress. You are not listening, chérie, said Suzanne reproachfully, as she paused in her long, highly interesting narrative. Yes, darling, indeed I am, said Marguerite with an effort, forcing herself to smile. I love to hear you talking. Oh, good lie. And your happiness makes me so very glad. Have no fear, we will manage to propitiate Maman. Sir Andrew Ffoulke is a noble English gentleman. He has money and position. The Comtesse will not refuse her consent. But now, little one, tell me, what is the latest news about your father? Okay, I'm gonna have to stop there. We didn't get as far, but we'll finish that tomorrow. Finish chapter 19. Also the fact, not to spoil things, it's just like very obvious who the Scarlet Pimpernel is at this point. Sir Percy seems to be putting on a mask for the public, but he's actually a serious person, and in his study he has maps of France, and seems to be not as lazy and inane as what he puts off. He also was the only person there when Chauvelin went to go meet him at the time that the Scarlet Pimpernel said that he would meet people. So, hint, hint. Again, the cleverest woman in Europe? I don't know. Okay. Tomorrow is Culture Corner. I want to watch that Mr. Beast Marxist video. Love that. Catch up on a couple of other things with current events, but then mostly get into Culture Corner. Ooh. And also, there's the premiere for my dance that I choreographed that will be coming out on YouTube. So you can be looking for that. It is 18 plus, just so you're aware. And there's also an option for a stripped down version, literally, on Patreon that you can pay for. Or you can subscribe for a reduced price and watch. So, there you go. Again, I'm a little bit shy about it because I have not danced in this way for a very long time or choreographed something for a very long time, but you know, it's good for me to try things and I enjoy it. So, there's that. All right. Thank you for being here. It was good chatting with you all. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.